All right. This is the IRS after party, which will be interesting and awesome, and is concluding our basically every on the Indie Review Show, which is on irsagency.com. We do, Corey and I, every Monday at 9 p.m. Pacific, do reviews of books on the Indie Review Show channel on YouTube. And then afterwards, we have an after party on whoever picked the book that week's channel. So anyhow, I'm Joshua Kimball. You're on my channel. You know where to find me. Corey, where can everybody find your stuff?
And you can find me at CoreyKerr.com.
Cool. I love it. All right. And so this is just basically where we hang out, talk shop, and just kind of have a little after party. I was going to say one thing, but I just totally blanked out. But the book that we reviewed. So we reviewed Darth Vader and Son by Jeffrey Brown, which was like really cool. It's a fun little coffee table book that is excellently produced, and you can check out. I highly encourage everybody to check out that review. Look at that strangely awesome articulated mouth that is being rendered. That is literally speaking the praises of that channel. And then let's see here. Oh yeah, we also did Vader's Little Princess by Jeffrey Brown. So now is the after party. And how is life, Corey? How's everything treating you?
It's crazy, man. It's good, but nuts. Yeah. I don't know. I don't have much. I feel like I just talked to you since we were on a 3 or 4 hour live stream a couple hours ago.
Yeah, that was a nutty one, but it was fun. That was kind of chaotic. It was like we had like 6 people on just chatting away.
Yeah.
I also realized I didn't really tweet out this link or send it out, so maybe people will be viewing this after the fact. But yeah. I'm trying to figure out a way to do this because the normal way of doing it isn't working. I've got to link up this mouth to the cheeks. There it is. Yeah.
Why is it saying that there's a slider?
So it's having a similar moment with this page where I'm trying to find the page that I want to reflect, because as this starts getting closer to the end, I like reflecting, having little visual callbacks to the start.
Yeah.
But that takes thinking.
Okay, so I'm going to try to put this to the parent, and then it freaks out. So does it freak out here, or does it work? Because if it works, then I don't care. So
Corey, I want to do a real quick test. I think we have like 2 viewers right now, so it's safe. Hopefully this won't kill viewers. I want to do a test because I have a pop protector, and then I also have like the sock on the microphone, and I'm curious what the effect is if I take off the sock. Like, does that make it better audio or worse? So okay. Do you mind being my ears for a second? Because I can't actually hear. Okay, so this is going to make a little bit of a noise, I'm imagining, as I pull the sock off. Sorry.
One of the more unpleasant things I've heard today.
Sorry. Okay. How does that sound? Does that sound better or just like too crazy?
I don't notice a difference.
So there's no difference between me like speaking into the mic now and then, okay, plug those ears. Okay, and this. Blah, blah, blah.
It's a little bit warmer with the sock on.
Okay, is warmer better?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right. That's good. Now I know to leave the sock on this this condenser mic. It's a whole new experience for me. I'm used to like a 15-year-old Blue Snowball mic, which are great mics, by the way. But I wanted something that was on like a little rotating hinge. I just want to be Corey, basically, is what it comes down to.
With my giant, unnecessary, huge microphone.
But it's great.
It doesn't even make things sound good because it's just surrounded by hard surfaces. There's like nothing but hard surfaces around it.
Well, I have a lot of hard surfaces in my area as well. So let's talk about hard surfaces. I'm just kidding. I do think like it is one of those things, though. At some point, you have to kind of accept whatever audio quality you're going to have when it comes to like what also will work with your own studio space, you know? So
right.
I don't know. But I am curious, like, you know, people who watch this after the fact too, since I have just recently switched mics, let me know. Like, you can actually even compare it if anyone's so curious to do this. Go to irsagency.com and watch our last stream. That was done on the Blue Snowball. And then the audio on this is done on my mic. And tell me in the chats. If anyone actually does that, that's amazing because it's a lot of activity to ask somebody to do. But let me know which mic you prefer. I'm curious if this one's an upgrade or a downgrade. Oh, Corey's muted. I think you were muted.
I was just telling my daughter to not walk around with her audiobook playing really loud since
Sorry, it looked like you were trying to say something to me, and I was like, oh no, okay.
No, it's just my my goal of trying to get you copyright strikes every time I come on. You know, I figure have an audiobook play.
I love it.
It'd be good.
Or just like Gorillaz, like the soundtrack.
Yeah.
I don't know if I told you guys. I had a video pulled. I think they actually were okay with it once we blurred it. But we were literally in the middle of a conversation, like a deep conversation about like what is considered like a copyright strike when it comes to like the headstock of a guitar. And then Corey was like, well, on these Gorillaz illustrations, they show like headstocks.
I still don't think it was the illustration. I think it was the animation.
Okay. It might've been the animation.
Because it was a YouTube video.
Yeah.
That I was playing to make my point. Because I don't think YouTube scrubs for images. I think they scrub for videos. But it's weird because it was like a picture-in-picture thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know. You think
there was definitely commentary over it.
Oh,
you know,
absolutely. But yeah, I wasn't even playing the audio.
But I still thought it was really ironic and funny that we were talking about like, oh yeah, like people really like do like even we were talking about like t-shirts and kind of questioning like, do they really pay attention like to t-shirt? And then it instantly that video got pulled because of the Gorillaz stuff. So it was kind of just appropriate for like considering what our conversation was. I thought it was kind of perfect, like because it was like, oh, okay, well that answers some questions, you know, like
you know how YouTube goes about it.
Yeah, but I mean, it's you know, it's not like that was done by a human being. I guarantee if I had like challenged that or whatever, if that had been a review or something like that, I would have challenged it. But it just didn't seem like worth the fight. If it was like, meh, you know, I could just blur it out for like 2 seconds.
I challenge it every time just because I'm so sick of the crackdown. That's just me, though.
I like that. You're just punk rock like that, Corey. Fighting the system.
Copyright was originally intended when the U.S. Constitution was written to protect small authors from people who owned printing presses publishing their words without their permission. It literally was built to protect the little guy. And it has been mutated and lobbied to the point where it destroys the little guy and protects the giant corporation, and it drives me nuts.
Yeah, I can understand that actually.
So anyway, I hate the current state of copyright. I like the idea of copyright, and I think we should have copyright, but the current state of copyright drives me insane.
Have you heard the pirate with the steering wheel attached to his crotch joke? Okay, because anytime somebody says drives me nuts, I think of that. It's the worst. But like anyone can say it, and I'm like, I just think of a pirate going, "Arr, it drives me nuts."
I wonder. Let's see. Okay, I'm gonna try this now.
I'm here all day, folks. Like honestly, like we're just warming up.
Explore.
Yeah. That was just the warm-up act. Just stay tuned.
Okay, so if I grab these and turn that off, and then if I then put it up. So there's this button that in theory is just supposed to put this control. Gosh dang it. and the other level, and it is not working.
Corey, I love that you like when you get frustrated, you use the same kind of terminology I do. Like I had to we have an old house that we we're lucky enough to get a house, but it was definitely like a property that had been rented a few times,
Yeah.
And so it's a house that has not been loved like in the past. And so there's just these little surprises after you buy a house like that, where it's like, oh, this was all drywall here. Like nothing and quick patched drywall, like nothing really special here. They just kind of covered over that. So there's been a lot of little surprises like that, but anyhow, the cabinets are terrible. Like at some point we're going to have to replace them. But like the hinges are just torched. So I had to replace the hinges on like this tall cabinet, and it, what should have taken like 10 minutes took like 3 or 4 hours, and just resulted in like a lot of me just being like, like that kind of stuff.
Right.
And it's a weird thing when I'm focused on a task. I just naturally do that. But I'm not actually like angry or anything. I'm just like, ugh, I don't know. It's a weird, like I have to emote while I'm problem solving.
It's very human.
That kind of, yeah. But it's weird. It's very strange. Like I don't know why that is. I know that's common, but I just don't know why it is.
Yeah.
Because if I don't, then I like do a much worse job. It's very strange.
I was actually having this conversation recently, and my wife always argues that there's a study out there that says that, cursing like reduces pain. But then I find it fascinating that like curse words always have like a hard consonant sound. Like usually there's a very poppy, K or T, or something. Anyway,
so you think they might be like some sort of cathartic, like the ones that catch on? Because there's a lot of really terrible words.
Yeah, but they're not used as frequently as the ones that have a very hard consonant sound and typically single syllable.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah.
The shorter the word, the more frequently its use is going to be. It's interesting though to me. There's a whole theoretical thing about cursing too that's strange to me, and I don't know where I fall on it, but I find it really interesting. Where I'm like, is substituting a curse word really not cursing? Like I was thinking about like those old 80s, television version, like the TV versions of like Terminator 2 or what was the really funny one? RoboCop. I can't remember some of the words they throw in there.
Well, or look at any sci-fi that happened in like the mid 2000s.
Yeah.
Frack.
Yeah, and it's like, is that really any different? Is it really interesting? Just theoretical exercise where I actually don't know where I fall on that, because I kind of feel like a lot of the time the meaning's the same.
It feels pretty silly to me.
Yeah.
There's something about it that seems sillier.
Yeah, I guess there is like a silliness to it. Maybe it lightens the sentiment.
Yeah. I don't know.
But I don't know. I remember this Bradbury in Dandelion Wine, I think. He has this kid who says something like, or maybe it's his father or something, that says the word hell, and like basically like there's like this response like, and he's like, it's a place. It's just a place. It's not, I'm not telling someone to go there. I'm like, and I was like, that's a pretty good point. But like, there's some words that I don't know if they should be bad, whereas there's some words where I'm just definitely like, they definitely don't have a good intention,
Right.
But there are some phrases where I'm like, I don't understand why that became like shocking,
Yeah.
It's very strange.
It is interesting. Why?
Okay, I'm putting too much words here. So you are working on syncing the vocals?
No, I'm trying to. I mean, I intentionally storyboarded it so I didn't have to sync the vocals. But there's one shot where the camera flies into her mouth, and that's this shot.
Yeah.
But now,
which is going to be an epic shot, honestly, with the console, like, yeah.
Yeah, but now there's something is wrong. And I actually think it might be that these two things are named the same thing. Shoot. All right. This is going to make for the worst live stream, is me trying to problem solve very complex analytical things, since I'm an idiot and I'm not analytical.
Well, that's okay. I do the same thing. I'm literally trying to kind of figure out what to do with this guy.
I rename that without it breaking everything. Ooh. Did I get rid of it? Oh. So that still works. That's good. Does this still work now?
Okay, filled with joy and calm that I can't explain. Okay, got it. Okay, so this is going to be close up that needs to reflect this, but it's a different scene. It's just going to mirror it in composition, which conveniently enough could work.
Cool. Okay, so I fixed that.
Yeah, a lot of this stream is going to be us talking to ourselves, like while we're working, because we're problem solving stuff, and that's kind of the nature of these kind of things.
In case you're wondering, greater world out there, you can't have two compositions name the same thing with joysticks inside of one of those compositions, because it confuses the system. It doesn't know what to look for after that.
You know, to be fair, having two things named the same thing can confuse a lot of things.
Yeah, especially
not just algorithms.
Especially when the code references that thing. Okay, so that's good. And then this looks fine. So now, can I put a wiggle expression on it? So let's add a loop out and a wiggle. So give me loop out ping pong, and give me.
I enjoy that sometimes when hearing Corey talk about processes, like if you heard it out of context, you would think it was a lunatic, like in their basement or something, where it's like, I'm going to loop that ping pong, and then
and then it's going to wiggle.
I get my wiggle effect on, and it's like, what is wrong with this guy? But that is pretty rad. That's magic that you do, Corey. Magic. Okay, so now I've got like a kind of rough idea here. I almost want it to be similar. Yes, it's a direct side shot. Okay, cool. This is going to be... It's funny that we're doing this, that I think both you and I do a lot of like kind of talking to ourselves when we're problem solving.
That we do.
So on the Jeffrey Brown front with the Darth Vader and something, I really have had quite a few times where I've been like coloring with my kid or something.
Uh-huh.
And I've been like, these are really fun materials to work with. Like crayons, just the sheer limitation, the fact that they're one of the worst things in the planet to draw with. You know, they pretty much took like Conte crayons that are great to to draw with, and then made them impossible and harder. So they're not as crumbly. And
make it out of the cheapest wax that you possibly can.
Yeah. But there's something great about that limitation, and I do actually think it would be fun to do like a limited illustration like that.
Yeah.
A set of things. Maybe I'll do a collab book with Ben. He came up with this idea the other day that was amazing. Well, this was like way longer ago than the other day, but I just thought it was the coolest thing. Where it was like Legend of the what was it? Legend of the Small Fist. I was like, that's
a guy with a small fist.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But it's a really powerful small fist. And I was like, that's a pretty great name. Just pretty great stuff there.
Yeah. I love stuff like that. It's funny to me that like it sounds silly, but then you think like that's not that much different than, 95% of the DC and Marvel market.
Yeah, and I mean that like if you're doing like a kung fu story, like it technically should have like a very terrible name. Like I don't know, I almost judge like if I'm looking into like watching a good kung fu flick, like the worse the title, like the more interested I am in like watching it.
Yeah.
It's a very strange thing.
All right. I think her mouth works the way I want it to. We've got cheeks and lips moving at the same time, and chin, and her face.
That's awesome.
I just got to see if I want her nose to move.
So is the mouth going to be like, is it going to be just sort of moving and the music will go with it, or is it going to actually match with
it's not going to match. Yeah. So she's going to be kind of in a wide shot. So if you look at the, where are we?
In outer space.
Test export now.
Let's see here.
I don't know where the animatic is. Oh, there we go. If you look at this animatic, March 24, April. This one. Let me mute it and bring it over here. So she shows up and she's in this car, which we made. There we go. So she's kind of small in the shot. And so we're not on her really for long enough, and everybody else is playing as well.
Okay.
So I don't think there won't be too much. And then the only time we're actually doing a real close up on her is like right here. And she's hitting this giant high note somewhere after this montage of
From Heck.
Yeah. There we go. So she's hitting this high note, and we'll like kind of just go into push into her mouth.
I have to also say that this client is really rad to be brave with the concept, because a lot of people would see something like that and just be so vain. Right. They wouldn't be able to handle a cool, articulate, artistic scene like that, And yeah. I feel like there's so many good music videos that come out of like musicians who are brave enough to like kind of swallow their pride and do the right artistic thing, because it usually ends up serving the music and making the musicians themselves seem really cool. But
right,
I feel like I'm just saying, like, it's very cool that you have a good client.
Yeah, she is pretty cool, and you can tell for the very reason that you said that, because she even made a comment about something that she didn't like about her appearance, but then said, but it's accurate. I was like, oh, cool. So anyway, this is what it's going to look like as we travel down her esophagus. I don't know what the inside of an esophagus looks like, but I figure it's something along these lines.
I don't know, man. That's highly unrealistic, and I think I'm going to have to send that to the anatomy department at your school and
Yeah.
have them critique it. And
here's the awesome artwork of Guminelli, who's been on 48-hour art check and runs her own 48-hour art check now.
That's cool. I need to catch up. I think I watched a couple of theirs, and it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Nice to see like artists working, making it happen.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Okay, so that looks cool. That's looking good. How far are you on this process now, would you say?
Well, I just finished one of the 4 band members. And I'll show you. So let's see. It's going to be Mary. I'll show you kind of what I have to do. It's actually really helpful last night. There we go, right here. And so, like when
like the stream, you got a lot of progress done.
Yeah, so I just showed the head that I was doing, and then I'm going to put the head on top of this body, and then I've got the different hand positions. Nice. The nice thing is she has some videos of her performing live.
Oh, cool.
And so this is how she holds her hands when she sings, and she does these little dances. You know how singers kind of groove with the band.
Yeah.
And so I'm gonna have her, and I've got the different. So those are her hands, and then I've got the different positions here, or the different pieces. So there's like her forearm, and her wrist, and then her upper arm, and her torso. Yeah. So each of these, I've just got to rig it, and then she'll do a little dance as she sings. So
it's awesome.
Yeah. So actually, that's probably what I should do now.
So that's one of the things I like about the live streams is I feel like there's like a zone that you get in when you're hanging out with other creatives. And I do understand, like, 'cause Paul was talking about like it being really hard to draw and talk at the same time, which I totally struggle with too. But it's like there's also something to be said for like just this sort of just having discussions about creativity, like fuels creativity. It's kind of like reading books on creative thinking and stuff, where you're like, or even reading books on philosophy, where it's like you may not even remember a lot of what you read, but you get this like weird fuel from it, and it kind of opens your brain to something. I think that happens with kind of hanging out with other creatives, you know?
Yeah.
That could also just be, I could also just be like absurdly extending the work time of my stuff. But I actually think it's the reverse, because I did most of Two Stories Book 1 just like in isolation. And I will say just like having conversations during does make a difference.
Yeah.
This is going to be really interesting. So initially I had him, he's supposed to be kind of kneeling at this point, but I wanted it to reflect this panel for anybody who's like this is that kind of meta stuff that no one's going to notice, but I will, you know?
Yeah.
I think good directors do that too, where they'll have like themes and repeated shots in films that are really subtle that you may not catch. But it's like, it subconsciously, I think, helps people feel like resolved if you see like a beginning and a reflection of the beginning and the ending.
Oh yeah.
It's very strange how that works.
Absolutely. Like that.
That is looking cool though. Fell asleep on.
Yeah, I hired a guy, James Clark, He was pretty awesome to do some of the gestural pencils and stuff. Anyway, it's nice to not be doing all of this myself. But he also made this 7,000 pixels by 10,000 pixels. So I'm going to crop it down so that it doesn't break. That's really big.
It's better to have it too big than too small, though, for sure.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I think one of the most irritating things would be hiring somebody to do something, and it's like you literally have to redo everything because it just pixelates to all hell when it blows up, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Okay.
I'm actually as nervous as I was about this. One of the most exciting things I think I did last night was that this looks knitted.
Yeah, it totally does.
I tried it a couple times and it didn't turn out. And then I think it's mostly in the coloring. It was the inks that were not working for me. Okay, so
I also think with stuff like that, like I'm really excited. Like these streams are going to be a little different when I'm penciling because I'm doing like, you know, rough thumbnails right now. So it's like the only part of my brain that's like, you know, occupied is the problem solving part, you know, which is okay. But if it like gets too complex, it gets hard to like stream and talk at the same time. So it'll be interesting to see how I navigate that when it comes to penciling. But when it comes to inking, dude, like, and this is going to tie to what you said about the texture, but with inking, I think I actually will do better inking if I'm streaming. Because it's like at that point, all the base is there and it's just pure craft. Right. And it like, to me, when it becomes pure craft, like it's super fun to chat with people, and it allows for that like loss of sense of time. That's like so important when you're doing texturing or like line weights. There's like this kind of zone that you get in when you're inking. And so to me, I think like that might've been a help too, is just like, you know, having conversations or listening to conversations allowed you to just kind of get in the zone and pattern. I'm just going to say that it was my stream that was responsible for that, so that, you know, you're going to owe me about like some royalties or something for it. That's basically all I'm getting at there.
I'll pay you all the money from all the awards that I get from this.
I have it on video. There we go, guys.
I actually should be careful. She may decide to.
Yeah, you never know. I would definitely hope that she would. But anyhow, that was kind of me joking and stuff. But at the same time, it's like I do think there is something to be said for not my stream in particular, but just talking and conversing with other creatives when you're doing like patterning and inking and like stuff that's like, it's intellectual, but it's like, you know, you kind of need to be in a flow state to do. Yeah. It's like there is something about like music and conversation, and like I think it's kind of like similar to like being at a coffee shop when you work on certain things, you know. And then there's some things like writing that like I could not live stream and write at the same time. That would be insane. Can you imagine that, like a writer's live stream where it's like,
wouldn't it just be really long pauses?
Yeah, it would just be dead silent and then frustration. And then the first draft would suck. It'd be like 10 sentences. Monty Python did a bit on this. I think I've talked about it before, but it's like a joke that they do like sports arena like contest type thing, but with writers. And so it's like the announcer's like, and he started the first sentence, and the first sentence is the word "the," and like it's just like these excited announcers, and they're like, oh no, he deleted the. Will he make it? You know, it's like this whole absurd idea of like that people would like tune in to watch like a writer type at a typewriter.
Yeah. Key and Peele did a similar one. obviously probably riffing off of that, but with teachers.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, they were like, you know, they were just doing that, but they did it as if it was like an NFL draft,
Ha!
and they were talking about like their salary was like grants and stuff. It was pretty good.
That's hilarious.
The sad part about it though was what they were actually saying. You know, it was like, this is kind of ridiculous that you have these people that are actually doing stuff to make society better, and they're the ones that we're underpaying and whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, it's tough.
I just look at elementary school teachers and I'm just like, you have the patience of Job.
That is true. And they also have like mad like leadership skills that like I envy. When I see like a boss like first grade teacher just command like a room full of like, you know, first graders, and they just and not like in a terrible way, but they just comply. I'm like, what magic is this? Like, I get so mystified by it. Like, they have mad skill with compliance. It's crazy.
Yeah, my sister taught for a couple years before she started having kids, and my dad, who's a high school teacher, he went in and just sat in her classroom, and he still is like, it's amazing. She would just in a very quiet voice just say something, and then all these nuts kids that are going like bonzo would just like immediately look up at her and stop talking and then sit down. And she wasn't like yelling or threatening them. It was just, you know, she had like trained them to do this stuff. Yeah, it was pretty nuts.
So Adam in the chat said a stream discussing writing, and hey Adam, how's it going, buddy? A stream discussing writing principles would be fun, but doing a work session would be weird and distracting for sure, right? Like you could talk about like you could even maybe work on like a story map for sure, like on a stream, you know? Like maybe even spitball, like I could almost see like a collaborative writing session kind of working on stream, just like an ideation phase. Yeah. But the actual writing, it just like, I don't know. I would be mystified if that could be done in an interesting way on a stream, you know? I'm not saying it can't. I'm just saying if it can, I'm not the guy to do it.
Do I want this? Probably reversed. I probably want that reversed. It's funny to me now that I'm using more Adobe software in the last 3 years than I have previous. Like they each do different things slightly better than the other ones. And like flipping something around is way easier in After Effects than it is in any other software.
Is it? Or is that familiarity? I'm really honestly curious.
No, so I'm familiar with how to do it in Illustrator, Photoshop, and After Effects.
Yeah,
and it's easier to get to, like it's fewer clicks to do it on After Effects.
Huh?
Because I have to go into like 2 menus deep to do it in Photoshop.
Okay.
Unless I want to do like transform and then hold down Shift and then hold Alt and then, you know.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It is less complicated, I guess. That's true.
Just fewer clicks. I feel like I've built like a lot of my action figures come with like different hands. You know what I mean? Like a lot of the action figures that I buy, they show up and you can swap their hands out or their heads for different expressions. I feel like if you've
it is
action figures as an adult, you've prepped yourself for like designing animated characters in a puppet animation.
I totally agree. I think if you think of things in the sense of components, I think it also helps to work commercially because a lot of people who haven't worked in-house like commercially don't. Well, I think it's getting better with like the advent of YouTube and stuff, but it's like there is a specific style of working that has to do with like maximum efficiency and reusable assets. That happens in-house at most like design and animation and art companies. And so like there's this weird process of like working on a server, like having good file organization, having good file titling, having good organization of your layers, having reusable assets, having movable assets. So like, you know, if you're working in house somewhere, a lot of the times they're going to be like, that hand I want to use for like 10 different people. So we don't have to redraw those hand positions 20 times, you know, like we can just cut the time, make more profit. And so like you get really good at things like making figures that can be readapted and used in multiple ways, and working in like a more systematic way. And I do think it's weird because I always advise, like, at least I think most creatives should have a year or two where they're just on their own, just cutting their teeth doing freelance. And that's it. Like, I really do think that's beneficial. I do think that part would be a hard experience. You have to learn it a little slower when it's your own work. Whereas when you're working with a team and everybody's using each other's assets, it's like it becomes so essential to have that. That was a total tangent, and I know Corey, you agree with it because like you've worked in house and been in that kind of scenario. But it's like, to me, I do think that's something I often forget. That's like a very valuable thing you can learn from working with teams and working in house somewhere. You know,
I just want to show you how well this leg works.
It does work very well.
Yeah, no, I agree.
It's interesting when you see the part of a leg moving, and then suddenly you really notice the lack of like the rest of the other half of the leg. It's like, what happened to the bottom of her leg?
Yeah, I mean, I do that sometimes to my detriment, where I will build these things out so well that that they could be used for anything. It's like I really only need that for that one shot or that one scene.
Yeah, that can be that can be a problem too, where, you know, depending, right? I mean, but yeah, that is true. Like, where it's like you might be over. I didn't think of that side of things. I mean, I don't know if that's true for you, but it's like I definitely could see that being an issue, you know, where it's like sometimes if something's due in like an hour, you don't need to label all the layers,
right?
You know,
right.
So it's, but I do think like having especially file organization, is so huge, man. Like, I remember when I was teaching, and Corey, you can probably speak to this if this is still going on, but it's like, I remember students like would just be like, I don't know where my homework is. And you're like, you don't have it. Like you didn't make a folder with like that was like titled based on the project, or they'd like make a revision and not save like the previous iteration. And it was like, what? Like, you didn't,
like, how, just how is that possible?
Yeah.
How do you not?
But I mean, it makes sense. Like, they need to be trained in that, but it's just interesting to see. And a lot of people, you'll tell them like, okay, here's how you need to organize your files. Like, you need to keep copies of every iteration so that when you make revisions, like you can go back, and sure, you can clean it out later, but at least then you have like, you know, like even when you're working with a client, it's like, you know, clients sometimes change their minds. So they'd be like, oh, can you make that person a brunette? And then you make them a brunette, and they're like, you know what, let's go back to blonde. And right. I mean, if you're a smart, savvy illustrator, like, you're going to be charging for all of that, like, especially if it's like a major change. But it's like, still, you're, you know, work for hire, and like a lot of the time. And so it's like, you do what the client's asking for. So, yeah. In those cases, it's really helpful to be able to just go, sure, let's go back and do that, you know. But if you can't go back, then you're literally doubling the work, you know. It's interesting to me that that's something like, you know, I had to learn at some point. And I don't know. It's one of the sides of art I don't know if people talk about as often. I don't know. Maybe they do.
I don't know. I don't hear them talking about it a lot. Of course, I'm not the arbiter of all things that are said in art, though I should be.
Ooh, that's a good idea, Adam. If you did a writers or a writing based stream, a critique session would work too, like the Inkling. Yeah, that's actually really smart. Like I could totally see that where it's like a, I don't know, Corey or I like reading a script to each other or something and being like, that part doesn't work, you know, like that kind of thing, or like reviewing that. Well, I could see that. I still think it would have to be more of a spaghetti at the wall meeting kind of thing, though, because I feel like even for serious editing, I need real focus on a script to give real feedback. Like I wouldn't want to just be on like a live stream. Not that you can't focus, but it's like it would require a lot of quiet and moments of just like zoning in on the text. Especially for me with like spelling, like as weird as it is, like grammatical and spelling issues like become really hard to catch when you're doing something like a stream, you know?
For sure. Okay, so hand point 2 needs to link to right arm 4.
I have to kind of keep this reflection.
Which is where? Where is it? Right arm 4. There we go.
Oh. I was supposed to be muttering in this panel. That's a perfect example of the kind of thing that can happen on a live stream. And like I said, not finished pencils, so that's not a dire mistake. If I were working on finished pencils, I'd hate to make a mistake like that. But like a thumb, who cares?
Wrist. And then wrist needs to be right arm 4. And then right arm 4 rotates. It all goes with it. Woo! All right.
That's great. Can you have the arm like rotate like 180?
I could with a lot more drawing.
No. I don't mean effectively. I mean just like cartoonishly. Yes, that's awesome.
Yeah, then we start getting into Terry Gilliam territory.
That's one of my favorite things about Terry Gilliam, though. I would love to do a Terry Gilliam style animation, not in like the same style that he does the clip art or whatever, but more like the things like that where you have like legs spinning like that when they're walking.
You know, I did that second animation for Wacom, and my contact, she actually said, "Oh man, this reminds me of the old Monty Python animations." And I was like, "Oh, that's huge praise." It's like, thank you,
dude. Like people, I don't think people who watch that realize like how crazy that was. That like one guy was doing that.
One guy was doing that, and it was before computers.
Yeah.
Like that's what blows me away. It's like I want to know his process. I mean, is he literally physically cutting things out?
Yeah, actually,
step, right?
Yeah, I mean, from what I've seen, he literally did cut things out, and he had like this whole complicated thing where some of it was like sort of traditionally animated, some of it was like stop motion of paper cutouts. That's insane. It's just like, but it's so fluid. And then you also have to think like a lot of what he was doing was also like stat cammed, right? Because like you can't just like quickly Photoshop something to be black and white like that. So he'd use like stat cams and then sometimes photocopying, but then like it wasn't even photocopies at the time. So it was like that weird thing. I'm blanking out on the name with that, the sheet, you know, where you do like a copy, but it would have,
are you talking about?
It had like a layer of graphite on it or something.
Yeah. Like it's not carbon.
Yeah.
Is it carbon?
I think it might have been like a carbon print or something, but anyhow, it's like the
copy, right?
Yeah, there we go. Carbon copy. So it's like predating even like photocopiers. It's insane.
Most people think that came from email because you can CC somebody that's a carbon copy, but it actually used to be carbon paper underneath normal paper.
Yep. Yeah, it's I don't know. I think if people watch it from the standpoint of I guess a testament to it would be like a lot of animators really respected Gilliam like for what he was doing with Monty Python because it was like this crazy experimental thing. but I still love it. Like I love that arms that just kind of grow. Like I don't know. It's such a fun world. Like, and you can tell a lot of it's riffing where it would like start and you could tell he's just kind of, well, then this will become this. And
right.
One of my favorite ones of his is like this little baby carriage that's like being pushed around, and then somebody like will like it's just like these paper cutout people kind of lean over the carriage and go, "Oh, what a beautiful little," and then like the carriage eats them.
Right.
And they just push the carriage and just continually start eating people. Like the baby carriage is like, he used the form of the baby carriage as like this monster that's like going around eating people. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
So good. Yeah, that guy has to be like one of those strange geniuses. I mean, you watch his films too. It's just, I don't know. There's something there that's fascinating, you know?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I want to make it so that if I rotate the pelvis, the legs react in kind, but stay attached. So if I reverse, if I make the legs multiplied by -1 of the pelvis rotation, I think that would do that. So, sorry, try that. So let's go this there.
I do want to throw out the question to anyone watching. I think we have a few people watching, but Adam's hanging in the chat. So, Adam, what are you working on, buddy? Are you still working on your grand opus? Adam's been working on like this super complicated kind of like lifelong project sort of thing, which I think sounds really amazing.
That sounds like a terrifying amount of pressure to me.
Yeah, it does. But I mean, it can go well. Like I've mentioned, you know, there's times where I don't advise that, and there's times where there's definitely proof that that's not always bad. Like Jeff Smith is a really good example. What horrifies me? Oh, nice. Oh, wow, you actually got wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, I might have to go in and color those legs a little bit more. That works pretty well.
All right.
I wonder if I multiply by -1.5. Yeah, I like that better.
Oh, this isn't good. I forgot the type again.
And multiply this by 0.8.
Okay.
See, this is going to be one of those live streams where just people are just enthralled at the mathematical equations that I'm doing.
That is entirely true. Oh, I'm hearing slapback for some reason. I'm not sure what's going on there.
On my voice or yours?
On mine.
Try it again.
Hello? I don't hear it anymore. Wonder what that was. That's much better. Yeah, I'm not hearing it at all.
Okay. I think I just had my speakers too loud.
Okay.
I hate wearing those headphones for hours and hours and hours.
Yeah, it can be a beast.
Okay.
I will go without them sometimes, and then sometimes I will rock them. I've gotten a little more used to them during the live streams. I've just realized, like, I've been live streaming quite a bit.
Yeah, you have.
It's kind of nuts, but it's fun. I enjoy it as a process. Let's see here. I do wonder if, like, for the live streams in general, if it would be good to have like an actual like live feed of the chats, or if it's better to have like the selective chat. You know, I've debated that.
Yeah,
because that would be possible.
You can always capture that window and put it up in OBS. I used to do that with, yeah.
But then I worry, like, if somebody just went on there and just said some absurdly crazy things, it's just like on the video, you know?
Yeah, then we get to make fun of them.
Yeah, and that's true. I mean, I guess I just was noticing, especially with like Twitch streamers.
Oh yeah,
they tend to have just like the live chat going, and it is interesting, you know, because at least people can like review what's being said and stuff.
Right.
I like the idea of like that being like an exercise in like community and free speech in a weird way too. It's kind of fun. And I could see where that would be engaging if I were like a viewer, you know, because it's like if you're saying something, but like at least it'll get called out. Adam was saying currently eating, getting back to his epic saga soon, designing the incidental characters and coming up with additional names that will show up. Cool. I feel like if you're doing fantasy, the names can be really cool. Or they can be really, really terrible.
Those are your options.
No in-betweens. Oh, we're at the hour mark. I was like, no, I was realizing I'm starting to like fade, and my body just internally knows when it's been about an hour of streaming. So I'm going to take a 20-second break. I will be coming back because my goal is to finish this page. Ooh, I love this. Doing something with an epic scope is intimidating for sure, but I also have some smaller projects before leading up to it. That's cool. I'm going to be opposite of like Corey, Scott, a lot of people, and just be like, just do the epic project. I don't know. Because like Corey, I feel like you probably learn so much. Like to me, like, you know, you talk about that first comic, and like a lot of stuff has changed. You've changed the script on it, you know, since. But I feel like if you hadn't gotten through like those 60 or whatever pages you did, wait, was it was like 60 or 70, right?
60 or 62, yeah, somewhere in there.
Okay, so like if you hadn't gotten through those 60 pages, like I don't know if you like would have arrived where you are, like with your style, with your like leveling up and skills. I don't know.
Oh no, I mean my whole intention with that project was to like learn how to draw.
Yeah.
And I view it as a total success, even though as a comic it's a bit of a failure.
I'm still pretty impressed by it though, because like if I look at like some other people, you know, like first crack at like a comic. And when I say first crack at a comic, I never mean like your first comic ever. Like most of our first comics probably happened when we were like 3 or not 3, but like when you're a kid, you know, you draw fun little comics, but I mean like a serious attempt. And if I look at that compared to a lot of people's first serious attempts, it's like, it's pretty good, you know,
I think it had its moments where it worked pretty well.
Yeah.
So
I still think that's another side project I want to do. Oh, Adam was commenting on the thing. He said, names and languages stuff is one of my favorite things to work on. I've always, for example, loved long lists of names in the Bible when most people tend to just skip past it. I am mixed on that because I think it's great for like the genealogy and it's great for like history nerds, but like I am one of the people who like I occasionally will skim past like numbers or like long sections of Deuteronomy where I'm just like I just can't do son of so and so, bore so and so, like, and I get it, it's really important like theologically, but it is really a drag sometimes to like and I don't mean that to I actually envy that about you, Adam. That's cool that you can get into that because like that's super. And I will say there's some really awesome names. It's just like it's really for me it's very tough to get into that part of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Although like once again super important. Just I don't know. Oh, Frank said I missed the IRS. That's right, Frank. That's right. We are so disappointed now.
And it was a really good one.
It was. We went over
the world's economic problems.
Yeah, it was crazy, dude. There was a point where like all of the prior US presidents, like on both parties, just like showed up on stream and were like, thank you.
Which is weird because many of them were dead.
Yeah, there were a couple that were dead, but they were like zombie versions of the presidents. I guess more than a couple, I should say.
Have you read that Deadpool comic?
I am bad. Like I have not read a ton of Deadpool comics.
Okay,
I need to.
You just described one of the best Deadpool comic premises is where Shield calls them up and they're like, "Hey, we need you to take care of this." And he's like, "Why me?" He's like, "Well, because somebody has this crazy Scottish scientist has resurrected all of the American presidents and turned them into evil zombies. And we can't have Captain America punching a bunch of dead presidents. So since no one cares about you, you could do it." And so it's literally him just fighting like zombies and ghost versions of all of the American presidents. And it's got all of the weird historical deep cuts that you would expect from that situation. Like Taft is like flying around in a bathtub that he never leaves. Like he's just in the bathtub the whole time. It's like,
that sounds wonderful.
At one point in time, like he punches Jimmy Carter and Jimmy Carter's like, "I'm still alive." And he's like, "I hated," and he's has some like economic policy that he didn't like as he's punching him. It's just like, it is one of the stupidest promises. It's one of those things where it's like, yes, I love comics for this.
Yeah, I do love stupid premises. Like I like stupid premises that just lean into it.
Do I have that one?
I don't know. Sounds like a indie review show episode.
I feel
maybe when we need a lighthearted thing, we could introduce some Deadpool in there, you know?
I'd like to do a Deadpool, but I think it's so mainstream.
That's true.
Here's my hipster statement of the day. I was into Deadpool before, like I bought the original miniseries, the 4-issue miniseries as it came out month by month with like Tolliver and all that stuff. But, oh man.
Oh, Frank was asking, what about Lincoln? I think that might have had something to do with like, what was Lincoln's special power in that fight sequence?
All right. Let me see here. I've got it right here. I'm going to go full screen.
Okay. Well, wait. Don't show those pages, man.
This is the same thing as the Indie Review Show. No
I know, but we're not. So what is it though? What's the premise?
That's it. That's the premise.
Okay, so like, but yeah, like Frank was asking specifically about Lincoln. What did he do with Lincoln?
Let me see. I'll find the Lincoln page here.
I think Indie Review Show is slightly bulletproofed because it's got review in the title. I know that's weird.
We're allowed to talk about stuff. I mean, that's the whole point.
No, we can talk about it. I was just worried you were going to go full screen and start showing all of it.
So here's...
Oh, no.
Here's Abraham Lincoln shooting Deadpool in the back of the head.
That's pretty hilarious.
And then George Washington.
Wait, did Washington just power up?
Oh, yeah. Washington goes like Super Saiyan as he's drinking a Samuel Adams.
That's pretty amazing. I love it.
Let's see. Right. What else is going on here? He goes and hunts big game.
Yeah.
It's so ridiculous.
I do like the premise of like a self-aware comic. Like he's aware that he's in a comic book. I think that's great. I have still not even seen the Deadpool movies.
Yeah, I've watched them edited.
I would like to watch them unedited, but I still have not. So I probably should. That's one of those ones that like a lot of people said was hilarious. Let's see. Felt the okay. Oh, I was going to take a 20-second break. So at this point, I will be shortly back.
I'm just going to be laughing at this comic.
It is pretty amazing. It sounds pretty amazing. That sounds hilarious. I like that bit.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, most of the time he's fighting George Washington and Abraham Lincoln.
Got it.
I'm flipping through here. Oh, here's Nixon.
Oh, Frank was saying we froze. I guess we froze. That's interesting. And then he said, before all the silly unicorn crap, Joe Madureira's Deadpool is the best. Interesting. Okay. I don't know any of that.
Yeah, Joe Mads is cool. It depends on it depends on what you want. Oh my gosh. It's so great. There's his Reagan. And then he dresses he dresses up as who's the blonde bombshell that was rumored to seduce JFK?
Marilyn Monroe?
Yeah, he dresses up as Marilyn Monroe so that he can get close to JFK.
It's very funny.
I've got to read this again. I love this so much.
All right, so I'm gonna take my 20-second break. I will be right back.
That's great. So good. Oh man, that is amazing. So I kind of want to wait to show Josh this. Oh, who is this one? Lyndon LBJ. Yeah, good old LBJ. Oh man, this is so good. I'm gonna have to just mail this to. I'm just gonna have to mail this to Josh. Of all the people I know, I think Josh would enjoy this. There's a giant Taft in a tub. It's good stuff. It's good stuff, man. Okay, I will also be back. Oh, Josh, I saved this for you. Not back yet.
I'm back. I think Corey must have went on break. So Frank said, my junior high was named after Lyndon B. Johnson. That's awesome. And so Frank, what was your stream? Which live stream did you do tonight? I'll have to check that out after. But maybe let the chats know so they can check it out too. Okay. So basically what I'm trying to do here on my layout is like kind of reflect, it's like page 3 or something. So it's going to be like a similar step, but it should be slightly subtle, I'm hoping. And at this point, it's going to kind of pull away. Oh, it's Tarako. Okay, cool. Okay, I'll watch that. So Frank has a stream called Tarako Creative Cast. That's kind of awesome. He's had both me and Corey on there. And it's a good cast. It's interesting.
Okay, Josh, last one. Because I know you'd enjoy this.
Which Deadpool is this, by the way?
Deadpool by Dugan. This is Reagan, and he has to kill him multiple times because it doesn't take, because you know how Reagan like beat several assassination attempts, but like he cuts him open, and he spills out jelly beans. And he's like, why are you still eating jelly beans? You're dead. Then he's just like, I really like him.
Oh man, I could just see like a lot of puns about trickle down theory, like when you're anyhow, that's hilarious.
Well, he's fighting him in space. Like he's on a spaceship that is part of a laser defense system.
Oh, nice. Like Star Wars. That's so great. Oh man.
And he's got a pet chimp that is a chimpstronaut that he's like using to fight anyway. And but one of the best ones is he gets in a WWE style cage match with Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln's like beating him over the head with like a folding chair and stuff. Anyway, it's great.
Oh man. Okay, I'm gonna have to see that. I'm gonna have to read that.
I should. You should. Well, I need to get your address, and then I'll mail you a couple of these weird ones.
I love it. I right now, like on my to read list is basically like I got the Peanuts collection from like 1950 to 51, and I'm really excited about that one because that's like that era where Snoopy wasn't like he still looked like a dog.
Oh yeah.
And the kids actually looked like kids. Like the heads hadn't quite gotten as large as they did. I'm still hearing massive slapback still. Sorry.
I don't know why you are. You shouldn't be.
It's a weird thing.
It's like the same setup as it always is.
Yeah. I don't know.
I'll just put in headphones for a bit. We'll see.
Sorry, man. I'm not trying to rain on your parade. It's just it's tough when you're talking and you hear like like after everything you say. And I'm just imagining like if I'm hearing it, it might be on the audio. I don't know. So, but
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if it is, but it makes it almost impossible to talk when you're getting.
Yeah, it gets a little.
It's like I can't do it.
But yeah, so I'm excited about that Peanuts collection. I don't know. We'll see if that end. Like I'm sure it's great, but I love that era of Schultz. Like, oh sweet, Frank got the second dose on Friday with no side effects. Dude, Frank, you win the prize. I don't know if Corey, you didn't have massive side effects, right?
Laid me up for a day, but weirdly it did it several days afterwards. Like
yeah, mine was like the next day, you know.
Yeah, mine was I got it Thursday and it hit me Sunday. Which is weird because I haven't really heard that happening much. So yeah. So it was good, but it was it was over and done within a day and it was fine. I just kind of slept it off and it was not a big deal. Did you already ask Frank what he's talking about with his introspecting? I'm curious. I'm always curious about introspection.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious about introspection too. That sounds awesome.
Introspection can also suck really bad.
Yeah, yeah.
It kind of depends. It's a double edged sword.
It can go good or bad. It really depends on
What
the
what you're thinking about?
yeah. Well, like so, like punched out a few trucks, but no side effects. Interesting. I don't know what that means. Is that weird?
I think he's fighting Transformers.
Oh, that's a good call.
Taking on Optimus Prime, Bumblebee.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I like it. Well, don't kill Optimus. I had to see that once in the 80s, and it still leaves a deep scar in my soul. Like a worse scar than Michael Bay. Oh, that was my burn on the Michael Bay franchise. I will say the VFX, and I remember the first time seeing it where it was like real trucks, was very impressive. I don't like the whole mandible jaw thing.
Yeah.
And then I just don't like his editing. Like, I don't know why, but it's just like, for me, I find his movies like impossible to follow because the fight sequences are just all over the place and the line of action is like
he's
missing.
Missing. It's like the line of action has been cut up into 1,000 tiny pieces and turned into confetti that he blows out a cannon.
Yeah, but it is spectacle. I mean, I'll give it that.
Yeah, they call it Bayhem, but it's not good spectacle. It's like, yeah, like I liked the first one, and I think I liked it because I wanted it to succeed because I was such a huge Transformers fan as a kid. I wanted it to succeed. And then the second one, I was like, okay, all right, maybe this series will get better. So I went to the third one and I was like, oh, I'm going to give it one more shot. And have you seen the fourth one?
I have not. Wait, was that the moon one? I get them all confused.
I don't know. I think the third one was the moon one with Leonard Nimoy. But the fourth one was where I was like, I'm done. After 3, I was like, I'm not watching these anymore. This is stupid. And then in the preview, you've got Optimus Prime with his giant sword riding Grimlock into battle. And I was like, well, yes, I have to see this movie now. I have to see this movie just so I can see, a semi-truck riding a Tyrannosaurus Rex into battle with a sword. Like that. That's just something I have to see. It was the worst thing I've ever seen, ever.
Yeah.
I mean, it even had good actors in it. It had Mark Wahlberg in it, and they got away from Shia LaBeouf and I forget her name, Fox. Anyway, they like introduced a new cast of characters or whatever.
Have you ever?
So boring.
Oh wow, that was weird. I moved. That's interesting. My Photoshop like disappeared for a second. So have you ever followed the drama of the Shia LaBeouf? I think it's like They Will Not Replace Us.
Are you talking about when he started doing street art and put a bag over his head that said, "I am not famous"?
No. So I'm trying. Okay, let me make sure I'm getting this accurately, like what it was called. Let me see. Shia LaBeouf. Because I know the general premise of it. I just want to remember what the exact phrase was. I think it was. It's funny. There was a This American Life. Let me see. Oh, He Will Not Divide Us. Okay. So wait, was that it? Yes. Okay.
This is all like, aren't these all lyrics from what is that band?
Muse?
Yeah, Muse. These are all. It's like all from Muse song. They will not divide us.
So
Sorry.
anyhow, so he had a flag. Like I'm gonna get the details of this wrong. So if anybody like really wants to deep dive into this, just check out like the This American Life where they talk about Shia LaBeouf's like whole flag incident. It's great. They just do like a point by point breakdown. But I'll give my vague memory of it. And it's one of those moments where like the internet hate machine is like kind of obnoxious and I dislike it, but there are times where like a good example would be like the whole Scientology protests that came out of like a lot of like dark web stuff, but ended up having kind of a positive impact for a lot of people. And kind of came like, you know, a lot of documents and stuff were released that were like really important to kind of expose some like corruption and stuff. So it was overall like kind of a cool thing out of like what's usually a very dark corner of the internet.
I think you just added like 7 thetans while you said that.
Yeah, exactly. But anyhow, like so this is one of those scenarios where it's like it you know, a lot of the picking on Shia LaBeouf stuff was strangely like a great thing. It was very funny. So he had this whole thing, and keep in mind, I'm like probably very politically aligned with what Shiloh was trying to talk about at the time, but he was just doing it in such a like artsy way that it was kind of fun to see it dismantled. But anyhow, so you had this live stream that was like, they will not divide us on a flag or something, or he will not divide us. And he was like, this flag is just never going to come down. Like, it's going to be a live stream. So he live streamed it. And he was just kind of like very openly on the internet being like, haha, like you can't get to this, like this flag will never come down. And so there was this giant internet like job that like a bunch of these, I think it was like, unfortunately, it's like 4chan and 8chan and stuff, but still, it's very funny. They literally like a lot of people like geolocated through like live streams where the flag was at, and then they ended up replacing it with like a I think it was like that frog, like Pepe the Frog or something, which is now keep in mind it's horrifying and terrible. What some people in the communities do, but it was just the way the whole thing went down was very hilarious because he was literally doing like live streams just talking about, hey, I have this flag, no one's going to move it, and that's just going to show the fact that our country will never be divided, and like getting kind of very righteous about it. And it was just, there's something very funny, and I think it like live streamed for like a day before anyone was aware that they had gotten to the flag. The fact that there was like this internet collective that just kind of decided to like replace this flag was just like one of the funniest things
They're like, heard. Oh,
the other
really?
Thing is, yeah, and this is the other reason. I'm glad Adam brought that up because one of the other reasons I don't mind people picking on Shia LaBeouf is he literally like word for word ripped off Dan Klaus for like an indie film.
Oh no, it gets worse. Because what Frank is saying is interesting too. Shia LaBeouf, he ripped that guy off, but then he also tried to make a comic that was a ripoff of another thing. And then when he apologized, he plagiarized his apology. Like he took his apology like word for word from some other. Like at a certain point, you wonder. I think Shia LaBeouf might be the best troll out there. Like I don't. It's like
you do wonder if it's like a meta thing where he literally is doing performance art, but his performance art is a performance of a performance artist. Like it's a layers upon layers.
Right. It's like so good that nobody notices. It's kind of like when the dude who played who's the guy with the scar that plays Joker?
Sorry.
The actor that has the scarred lip that plays the Joker.
Oh, who passed away?
He passed away.
The original. Wait. Oh wait. Oh, you're talking about in the new Joker. Okay, I thought
Yeah.
you were talking about in Okay, so oh my gosh, it's not River Phoenix, but River Phoenix is like brother or something, right? Isn't it? Isn't he somehow related to? Yeah,
Hold
Joaquin
on.
Phoenix.
Joaquin, yeah.
Joaquin Phoenix. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
so
River Phoenix's younger brother.
he
Yeah.
he trolls people all the time. Like he'll go to an interview and just play a part, and then the internet just discusses whether or not he was kidding or not. So like when he was interviewing and promoting the Joker, he kept making the audience feel very uncomfortable for laughing at things, and he'd be like, I wasn't making a joke there. What why are you laughing? You know, and like, but he did it so well because he's such a good actor that like people just thought that he had like that he was having like an anxiety attack.
Do you think that's a promotional thing, or do you think that's like a heavy? Because I think he's like a heavy method actor, you know.
I don't know. It could have been method, but I mean the thing was already shot.
Yeah.
Shot and edited, so he was done. But he did the same thing when he pretended like he wanted to be like a rap artist. Did you remember that one?
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
And everybody and like people were trying to like get him to admit like that he was kidding. And he was taking it totally seriously. Anyway, that guy trolls hard. It's funny.
Oh, that is funny. I mean, yeah, I think there's something great about. I think when it's punching up, it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
When it's punching down, it's like very sad.
Right.
Like in general, like punching down tends to be kind of that way. Let's see here. I'm trying to think. I want this more like sleeping kind of hand. Let's see here.
Get in there.
Yeah. Frank was thinking of like the Joker. I was thinking was Heath Ledger, who but obviously different Jokers, different films. I still have yet to see the Joker movie.
I haven't seen it either.
I am pop culturally very unaware. Although it just looked like the comedian. From the trailers, it looked a lot like the comedian. Let's see here. Okay. I don't want to ball that hand into a fist because that's a cheap move. There we go. Just like subtly. Okay. That's pretty hilarious, though. I think I don't know, but I do sometimes wonder if Shia LaBeouf. You do wonder sometimes like how intentional a lot of it is.
Yeah, it's. I mean, have you seen I'm Not Famous? He did this. He did this thing where he just started walking. He went to like a premiere with a paper bag on his head. This is right after he plagiarized. He like had this string of plagiaries, and he went to a premiere with a paper bag on his head, and he had written in Sharpie, "I'm not famous." And he just like did that, and then immediately followed that up with he rented a street level like storefront in New York, and then he just sat on the other end of a table, and you could come in, and he called it performance art, and he just cried, and you could sit there and just make fun of him or cry with him, or it's like the weirdest thing. I can't remember the whole thing, but like people are just super. I gotta look this one up. Let's see. What did he call it?
Yeah,
Oh
I
yeah.
think. Oh, go ahead.
Uh, yeah. A serious and ongoing public safety hazard. It was shut down. Oh man.
So initially, I guess before the flag thing, right?
Yeah.
He did an install that was shut down because people were showing up, and I think he like punched a few people.
Yeah. That's the I'm not famous.
Oh, okay, well, that's the thing where it was like that. Well, anyhow, there was one where he punched a few people, and he was saying, like over and over again, "He will not divide us." And
Okay.
and he did that, and like the idea was like he's just going to do that, so he just kept doing it, and people would show up and get all pissed off at him and yell at him and stuff, and eventually they shut it down, so that's why he did the flag thing, and then it became like this online game of like capture the flag, which is just like, I don't know, it's incredible the lengths people go for this stuff. I feel like I don't pay enough attention to a lot of that kind of stuff. But it is always really intriguing when I do read about it, because I'm like, wow, this is insane. Like, it's interesting.
Yeah, I don't. IMDb is down. That's crazy.
What?
How is IMDb down?
Well, maybe that's what the Frozen stuff was that Frank was talking about. Maybe the whole internet's frozen.
Everything except this live stream.
Yeah, maybe they just need to defrost the tubes of the interwebs, the whole series of them.
Okay, I just want to look and see what Shia LaBeouf has done recently. Oh wow, so he's still doing stuff.
I mean, the thing is, well, I don't know. I'm trying to think of like something I've seen him in where he was like an incredible actor, and then I was like, never mind.
I like him.
I mean, I don't think he was a bad actor. You know, I definitely like pretending that he never was a character in a property that I really care about a lot.
I actually liked him in that too. I think just because
Corey, my soul just got hurt a little bit there.
No, I'll tell you why I like it. I liked it because he's got a little bit of Tom Cruise energy to him, and I just like watching kind of slightly unhinged people. I just find, I mean, like if I'm going to go to the theater, I want to be entertained. And like, have you heard the song Tom Cruise? Is Tom Cruise crazy?
No.
It's Jonathan Colton, who does a bunch of internet songs. He has one song that's Tom Cruise is Tom Cruise crazy. And he talks about how he's anyway, it's funny, but he's like rating different levels of crazy, and then like the most extreme level of crazy is Tom Cruise crazy.
I can see that. You know, Tom Cruise is weird though, because I feel like you know, I want to not like his movies, but he's really good in like almost everything he's in.
Right, but I think one of the things that makes him really good,
is him being a little
he's a little nuts, you know.
Oh, for sure.
and that kind of comes through. Peanut
Butter Falcon. What is this?
It's one I've heard of. My wife has watched it and said it's very, very good. I haven't seen it yet, but yeah, he's in it and it's supposed to be really good.
This is a Tom Cruise thing?
No, this is a Shia LaBeouf thing.
Is that the thing about like where he plays like his dad or something in it, or was that a different thing?
Let's see. I'll look it up.
Okay. Let's see here.
Zach runs away from his care home to make his dream of becoming a wrestler come true.
Okay. I'd be curious to check that out. That sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah. And Adam is saying, I can see Corey as being a Colton fan, and not only do I enjoy some of his music, but also I backed the Kickstarter of the comic book based on a lot of the characters that he created in his music.
Okay.
I didn't even think about doing that for IRS. It's not one of my favorite writers, but anyway, it's just funny that there's this. You got to listen to Jonathan Coulton. Do you like Weird Al?
I do like Weird Al. Yeah, so I might be into it. You know,
Yeah,
I like Flight of the Conchords a lot. So
yeah. It's he's funny. It's just goofy stuff. I think you and Benji would enjoy it together because that's when I really got into it. Was when my daughter was 6 and 7 years old.
Okay, got it.
So, but he does funny stuff like sorry, something wasn't attached. Arm left needs to be attached to torso.
I think it's an interesting dynamic where people are rewarded as actors for like pretending and playing and make believe and stuff. And I think like there's inherently like a little bit of insanity to that. Like not that actors are all insane or anything. It's just like I think there's definitely like I think something there. Much like, where I think most cartoonists, have to be kind of sort of okay with a certain level of isolation,
Mm-hmm.
I think actors like have to kind of embrace like a playfulness and a pretend that I think can lead to some personality issues. Not that it's all actors are there. It's just like it's not surprising, I think, when like that mixed with like the over worshiping of like celebrity in our culture and just the level of celebrity that actors themselves get. It's always really baffling and interesting to see like kind of the effect on people. Okay, so Chris was talking about that one where he plays like a dad or whatever, is Honey Boy. And it's one that's more autobiographical. Yeah, I think it's about like a child actor or something that's autobiographical. But yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't rule him out. Like I would guess that he might make really great work. But he's definitely a strange dude. And I agree with Corey in the sense like he definitely does seem like a guy who, intentionally or not, is definitely very skilled at like trolling, or I should say baiting trolls.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know, man. Maybe he's just like a huge like Dadaist, It's just like his version of the urinal in the museum,
Wouldn't that make you a bigger fan?
It would. I love that stuff.
Shoot. I don't know.
All right. So let's see here. I gotta think about this next panel. Need a second. My brain is like, okay, end. Okay. Okay, this is gonna reflect.
Shoot. This is when I need to not be on a live stream because now I just have a bunch of Jonathan Coulton songs stuck in my head. I'm not allowed to sing them because then you'd get demonetized.
That is so true. Well, I don't even have monetized, so it doesn't really matter. It's just more when the videos get pulled that it kind of sucks. Honey Boy, okay, and then Frank was saying, do I need to get Shia on the Taraco Creative Cast? Dude, yep. If you can get Shia on, hell yeah, dude. Like,
absolutely.
Get him on anything. That's internet gold. All right. I got to step away for like 2 seconds to figure this out. Oh my goodness. Okay. And then I think I might go for about like 20 more minutes or 30 because I don't want to do another like 4-hour one. I got to work in the morning.
Oh, you're working tomorrow?
Yeah, tomorrow morning. So
I don't know why, but I had I have a non-teaching day tomorrow.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
They're like, yeah, let's just make this weekend like a super weekend. So yeah,
that's good. I have Wednesday and Thursday because I'm doing those signings, so I'm taking those days off. Mm-hmm. And especially Wednesday night, I'll probably pull another late one. Let's see here. 4-hour bender, Jake was saying. He's trying to encourage the night gang. Hey, you know what? It might happen because I do want to get further on this page, but I'm guessing it's going to be a little shorter. Let's see here. I will say that was a pretty awesome one, though. That was fun to have like the whole crew on. Maybe I should invite some more folks on. I don't know your thoughts on that. The other thing is like, I also feel like that can be really distracting from like from getting stuff done, but it can also be cool. So I don't know. Anyhow, all right, I'll be back in like 2 seconds. I got to think about this panel. How am I gonna reflect? Oh, that's true, Frank. I didn't have you on. I should have had you on last time. Next time, just say it, dude. Just be like, hey, have me on too. I will often like forget really obvious things, but yeah. Okay, let's see here.
That's too fast.
Okay, I'll be shortly back.
You keep saying that and then not leaving.
I know. I do that a lot. And what I'm going to do instead is leave mid. Oh.
Oh man, 4-hour bender. Oh, garbage. I'm trying to decide how I want to make this work from a animation standpoint. I'm going to come in here like this, and let's switch it.
All right, so let's see here.
Boom. There we go. Okay,
so what do you think? Should we keep it the two of us, or should I throw out some invites and make this thing interesting?
Do whatever you want, man. I'm down for whatever.
All right, I'm throwing out some invites.
I mean, when we shoot, when there's more people on, then I can fade into the background more.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
I noticed me and Paul last night, we were not talking as much because as soon as he's like, I can't draw and do this. I was like, just fade out, dude. Just fade out. And he did to get a ton done. But I always feel like I never really contribute the same amount as everybody else does because I'm like, oh, good, an opportunity to not deal with everything. Yeah, that's pretty good.
So I'm throwing out some invites, and if you guys want to join, you're free to join. If you don't, no worries. Let me see here. Especially to Kawagua, because I know you got a newborn, so you may not.
Chris,
may not be able to do it. Congrats, by the way.
Yeah, this kid. That's cool. Mm-hmm. Now I really want to talk to you.
I know, I do too. I want to hear all about it, but we'll see if we can coax him on. Again, I'll totally understand if not. And then let's see, Adam. I invite like almost every time, but Adam's usually busy, so or like getting something going. So, but I will invite again. So, okay, the invites have been sent out. Have I missed anyone? Jake. Okay, Jake is like the founder of the Word Night Gang. He's always welcome. So let me see if I can find that. Everybody else I sent it through Facebook. Let me get the last one. Sorry for this boring nonsense. This is one of those things I do better if I talk through it. Okay. But what were you saying, Corey?
I was saying I was wearing Aussie earlier today, and I came down here. I think I was able to do about 5 minutes worth of work in the 20 minutes that I was down here, and then I gave up and started walking around the house bouncing. Nice. So I imagine Chris is in a similar situation. All right.
Yeah, I can definitely imagine that too. Okay, so I sent out the invites. Jake's on. All right. Welcome, Jake.
Hi there.
Jake Twister, cartoonist from Norway. How you doing, buddy?
Yeah, I slipped into a 12-hour coma and now I'm fine.
Did you hit
all arms and pains and all that stuff remedied?
Nice. Did you hit your deadline?
Oh yeah. I was doing it in the stream while as we were talking.
I remember, and you had sent it out. I was just hoping it went well with the editor for you.
Oh yeah. He liked it.
Sweet.
Said it was amazing and all that stuff. I didn't find it amazing at all. I'm going to fine tune it a little bit more. So everything is just VIP at the moment. I've been studying the face of the character that I drew, and I'm like, man, she's got like a sharp, really sharp chin, like
that kind of thing.
Yeah. She looks like she's like she's got that Wicked Witch of the West chin, you know?
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, so I don't know if I should like keep it because the comment is like she's average. She's supposed to be presented as average. Why not show like an average body? So yeah. But I can definitely like resonate with Corey on yesterday and last night. I don't know anymore, to be honest.
It all blurs.
But I'm on like on the opposite end where like getting in word wise was a little bit sorted in that I cannot like express it through camera. So yeah.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah, it's tough with that many people. Like that's why I'm like, I think it's fun to have a lot of people on. I do think for the future, I'm going to keep in mind, I think that's the maximum amount of people I think I can have on here. Because I think if it gets to like beyond 6, it's just going to be like a bunch of madness. Like, and you know, then I'd have to like play moderator more, and I don't particularly want to do that. So like, I think 6 worked, but I agree. Like it must have been hard to get a word in edgewise, especially with folks like me who like interrupt a lot. So I definitely understand. But I also think I do like the idea of like a stream like that in the sense of getting work done, because it is nice to be able to kind of chime in every once in a while, but mostly just get work done, you know, and yet have the content, you know, continuing for anybody like tuning in, you know.
I think it's sort of like a remedy effect, not a remedy effect, but like a remnants effect, given that like you have the 48-hour checking, and that's sort of like a conditioning that might have overspilled over to this one, so that you work more proactively and try to like make yourself accountable, because the 48-hour art check was like an accountability kind of thing, you know? And it's sort of good to see that. I definitely felt the effect of it, and I produced finally after being down in the creative rut for like half a month now. So,
oh, nice, that's cool. Well, hopefully this can function in the same way. Frank, I sent you the link on Facebook. I think. Let me make sure I sent it to you, dude. Yep, it's in your Facebook Messenger, I believe. Is that from? Wait, that's from Tuesday. Okay, let me make sure. There we go. Okay. I double sent it just in case. So double check your messenger, Frank. You should be good to hop on if you want.
So yeah, we launched yesterday night the crowdfunding thing for the anthology, and I felt pretty good.
Cool. Although so it just launched?
Yeah, it launched like, I don't know if in your time it would probably be like in the afternoon. Yeah.
Okay. Did you link to it on your Twitter or anything?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not that it's anything that I'll promote here, of course, because it's an 18 plus. So yeah,
Okay,
we
got
want
it.
things all ages here, right? So
Yeah, well, with that kind of thing, maybe. Yeah.
yes.
Uh,
But if anyone is just want to like check it out, head over to Twitter and type up Jay Twister in the search bar, or the handle is at JTV Ester. Jay Twister.
I love it. And then there's Chris was like we predicted. He was saying yes, currently navigating all this crazy baby stuff, which makes sense. Must be a delay. What the heck, Frank?
I'll send it on to Frank. Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
I'll
I
pass it on
definitely
his
sent
Discord.
it. Yeah. Go ahead and forward it to him. Maybe on Discord it'll work better. Maybe you're having a delay, bud, because like I think you saw us like freeze too, and I didn't see a freeze on this end. Or maybe we're having a delay. I don't know. I have pretty terrible internet, so. But
your picture tonight on the show was pretty bad.
Oh, really? Like the one that was streaming? Like
it was kind of going in and out a little bit. I mean, it was getting super pixelated.
Okay, I'm gonna have to look into that. Maybe that's just the connection.
Yeah, you've had a couple like hiccups in like latency and stuff in the past couple streams too. Well, at least what I've been here. So, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense.
I can back it up.
Yeah, it's unfortunately like the area I live in has literally one provider and they suck. So it's kind of one of the annoying things about I feel like the
telecom monopolies.
Yeah, I feel like utilities and telecoms have. There we go, Frank. Oh, all right, and I think you're good.
All right. Well, if we're doing that.
Hey, Frank.
Hello.
How's it going, man?
Good. Just drawing here on my tablet.
Nice. So let's see. I'm trying to figure out this sequence. And then what are you working on, Frank?
Right now, just dueling here. I was working on the next Captain Goggles and Masked Woman mini comic. I was actually talking a little bit about it on the stream tonight.
Cool.
And so I was working on a pose that I might use in a panel, and also was doing some concept art earlier. We're gonna add. It's gonna be also double for the 9-volt anthology. It's manga. So we're gonna have a kaiju type of thing.
Ooh,
it's gonna be like Mothra, but it's gonna be a butterfly.
Awesome,
a giant butterfly. So I was in the concept art for that, and then Anna redid it, and so I'm gonna play around with that for a little bit.
Cool. I like kaiju stuff. It's always fun to draw giant monsters.
Yeah, there seems to be like an in now for some people, tokusatsu or kaiju, because you got like people like Frankie B. Washington. He's making one which is called Kaijus versus Cowboys. Sorry,
yeah,
I'm really slurring today. So. My bilingual is not in A game now. So yeah.
Yeah, that's okay. It's you had a late night, so it makes a lot of sense. I think a lot of us are potentially recovering from the last crazy stream. That one was long, but I did feel productive, so that's good.
It's a normal Sunday night for me.
Yeah, I mean, in reality, that's pretty much how long I would have been up working anyway. But it is interesting keeping the mind engaged in multiple levels can be exhausting too. Let's see. Felt I was breathing. I needed to say again because I've said this before, so I'm actually going to change the script.
Josh is changing the script.
I know.
That is forbidden.
If
it's down on paper, it's set in stone.
That's what it said. It can't say something it didn't say. So What now, Jake? Like, what's the big project now? Is it the other project that shall not be named?
No, that was the first page that I worked on.
Oh, okay, got it.
I got 9 more.
Oh, okay. So you're not out of the woods yet, but you cleared the first deadline.
I just entered the forest now, and I can still see the light behind me, and but like the path ahead, it's really crackly and really dark. I gotta admit. Yeah, I got until like the end of July to do this thing, but if I keep it up like at this speed, maybe I will be done by the mid of July. No, mid of June. Sorry, if I were to do like 24-hour drawings every day. Not
by
recommended.
June. That makes sense. Takes a long time to make comics, man.
The other
Takes me 2 days.
What?
Like I've done some in 2 days, but I do short comics.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a possibility. I mean, like we've had let's see. Yeah, I mean, like, so we've had like David Chelsea on like Artcasters a bunch, and that guy can like knock out like 24-hour comics. You know, like he'll do a whole comic in 24 hours. But he's also David Chelsea. You know, I don't know. So it's like it's a weird. For me, they take forever. But I think it depends on what you want. You know, for your.
The question is, how much does the comic demand of you?
Yeah, exactly.
And how much like that literary toolkit that I mentioned yesterday is summoned on your behalf, because you want to like if you're doing creative work, things can get meticulous by the way of just being very precise on your outlining and layouts and all that stuff. But if you really like wanted to get the brass tacks, you could just like plump down a bunch of comics within like an hour or something if you just concentrate on stick figures and not putting hyper demand on yourself to create and channel that stuff into the work itself. And then there's about like having the artistic brevity. I'm one, as you mentioned, like not having found this voice yet and just trying to test out different things and just try to see if I can find some shortcuts that I'll be using and appropriate for myself to style later on. So it's all like a development, and it's a good like check to see that your abilities are up to par or to snuff by just doing shorter works, because then you will not rust out.
Yeah, I mean, like, so, like, a while ago, you know, like, I've done anthologies and stuff, and, like, definitely shorter work, and, like, to me, I could knock out, like, you know, a 4-pager or 5-pager in, like, you know, a couple weeks. But it's, like, you know, it just depends on the thing. It's easier to map out a shorter story. It's harder to edit, like, this is just my own experience, but it's, like, for me, it's harder to, like, the script phase is a little more difficult because it's much more condensed. So you really need to make sure everything you're writing is like a bang for its buck, you know, because you've got like, I feel like it's almost like New Yorker cartoonists too, right? Where when you have one panel, what you say really matters, you know, like when you have 5 panels, like you have a little more flow to go with. When you have like multiple pages, a little more, but when you have like a whole book, you have a lot more breathing room. So I feel like the script phase is the hardest phase for like the short stuff for me. Just boiling it down to like a short, you know, thing and making sure everything matters. But yeah, like the execution part like isn't as bad because it's like you can do all the great stuff like the thumbnailing and all the prep work very, you know, it's just a shorter time frame map. But I agree, it's a really good practice to do.
I don't know. I kind of I can agree in some areas on that, but I wholly differ out from the thinking in the sense that I treat every page as a real estate, and when that real estate doesn't meet up with my set expectation, regardless if it's 1 page, 4 page, or 10 pager or 125, everything has to be treated in a way that effectively communicates what I want intentionally, like the sequencings and all that stuff.
100%. Yeah.
Adding to that, it's just like seeing it as purely mathematical, but also it's also a sense of like having a good flow with on par with great visuals.
Yeah, I agree with that. I guess what I meant by breathing is like, let's say you're writing a 2-minute song.
Mm-hmm.
You may not have as much time for like the build and the crescendo. You definitely are going to have a song, like especially if it's like a rock song, it's probably just going to be mostly verse, chorus, verse, maybe a breakdown, and then like a chorus and an end. Whereas like if you have like a 10-minute song, you have areas where you can have the guitars breathe. You can have like a longer buildup. You can emote a little longer. And sometimes to like, that may not always be a benefit for it. But the point just being like, it's like you just have more space to work with. But yeah, like still everything should be intentional. So I guess my point is I do actually agree with what you're saying.
Yeah.
Just for me, I find it like harder to make sure that because I'm a long-winded person and in general, like I just find it very hard to condense an idea into a very simple thing. Although then again, I mean, I did that for t-shirts for years. So it's like, which is very bang for your buck. Like it has to make sense in one image really quick, but it's like, even that, like the concepting stage was the hardest part with pictures. I want to mention this thing in the chats. Adam was saying, I found it interesting that you characterized the Holy Spirit as being fresh like peppermint. Yeah, it's a weird thing. I can't really explain that, but that was my experience. And it's kind of a vague, it's hard to describe ethereal experience. Like a good example would be like if you just dropped acid like today, you would have trouble putting into words what you experienced. And so like a lot of it's going to just sort of reference things that we can connect to here. But like when you talk about experiences that are kind of beyond the comprehension, but beyond the senses of comprehension that we actually have, it's like hard to do. So that's the best I could describe it. It was like breathing the freshest air. But I can't, like, once again, I'm not really trying to convince people of my experience being more than my experience. It was just like a very profound one. But like, yeah, that was the weird thing is like at first it did kind of feel like menthol or something, which is interesting. But not like a menthol cigarette, because I as being an ex-smoker, it's like I think I started smoking menthols, and that's a whole different experience. but it was, I don't know if that makes sense. It's rambly. But yeah,
Adam and I, we like that. I think
it's a hard one to I always find that like part of why I like writing about this as a subject is it's a hard experience to write, and so that actually makes me want to write about it, because it's just very hard. It's difficult to write. And everything in this book has been a practice in like, hey, this will be awkward and vulnerable to write about. That's what I'm going to focus on, like the whole book's been guided by that. So, and I think if you're doing autobio, like this is my own opinion, that's why but I'm trying to put it into practice. But I feel like if you're doing autobio, that's the way to do it. Like I think whatever you feel really awkward or vulnerable talking about, like that's probably where you should go in your story, I don't know. Rambling, but that was my long-winded answer to that, Adam. Do you guys have you guys well, I mean, Frank, you did a story recently about your experience with like the Texas freeze or whatever.
Which is what I'm working on right now. I'm inking the pages on my laptop.
Nice. And then Corey, have you done autobiographical work? I know there's definitely autobiographical elements to any fiction, but like, have you done any straight autobio stuff?
I've written 2 poems about attending my brother's funeral as a kid. So that's autobiographical.
Wow, that's amazing.
That sounds cool.
Yeah, it was cathartic. Yeah, that just brought the mood down quite a bit. But yeah,
no. It's just like
everybody was like, I don't know how to respond to that.
I could respond to it, but it's just like I don't really know Corey like deep down enough to even comment on it, so it shouldn't be like taken on the spur moment. It's like
when I was 7, my mom got in a car accident on Mother's Day on the way to church, and my 1-month-old brother and 2-year-old brother were killed.
Yeah.
And then my 5-year-old brother survived, and I was 7. And so that was a very formative experience.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm also doing it, and I've talked about this with you, Joshua, before, and autobio comic where I was hit by a car when I was 8. So that's one I'm working on after this one.
So I'm like, I actually
and I did another one a few days ago. This is the one I did in 2 days. There's also a little bit of an autobio.
Cool. I think so when you do those, do you feel vulnerable at all? Like, I mean, obviously I think Corey without question writing about and I also want to couch like and Corey knows this because like Corey teaches communication, so he knows when I laughed there it wasn't because I was laughing because it's funny, it was like an uncomfortable laugh.
Yeah.
Which is something Corey's given me tips on, like kind of trying to check that because like it's a natural human reaction, but it can be read wrong.
Oh, it was only in the Winsor McKay one.
Yeah, it was when we were approaching like a really sensitive topic of McKay's kind of like very racially charged images, like from the 1900s that reflected a lot of unfortunate views of society at the time. But yeah, so I like obviously I think when Corey was writing those poems, it's like you're probably feeling pretty darn vulnerable when you're doing that.
Not really.
No.
It's an interesting. I mean I've been vulnerable on a lot of other things that I've created, but I'm extremely comfortable talking about that because that's how we kind of processed it. So we were just very open with our community and everything. I mean, my dad at the funeral was like, "Hey, I'm going to talk to you guys about this, and so I need you to not be weird about that." You know,
I think that's like, great.
And so I just grew up, being very open and discussing that particular event and the aftermath of it pretty openly, almost casually. It took a lot of the scariness and negativity out of it. Yeah,
I've definitely experienced that to a much smaller extent with like my father's death and stuff, where it's like, people's kind of treating the topic of like death or like the loss of like a loved one with like kid gloves is mildly infuriating sometimes. And so I do think like kind of getting ahead of it, like, I don't even know if getting ahead of it's the right term. I think just being open about it and, in a weird way, by doing that, you're kind of allowing the topic to be breached, whereas like people usually kind of avoid it. I think that's great. But I guess what I was getting at is like, I feel like I feel like vulnerability is a good key if you're going to do autobio. Like Corey, weirdly enough, if you were to write a story about it, I would personally, like if I were reading it and giving advice, which you wouldn't need, but if I were reading it, I'd probably push you to go in areas that you were vulnerable with, which is weird, but I think it makes for really good art. Like, I can't explain it, but I really think that makes because like that's even when we were talking about Fun Home by Bechdel,
Yeah.
there's some parts in there that just get super like uncomfortable. And I think she was uncomfortable with, like maybe even wrestling with, like wasn't sure about. And I think that made it really interesting. I don't know. That's my own thought on that. I don't know if everybody would be on the same note with that because we're all different people, but that's my thought with like autobio. Like if you're going to go there, I think with poetry, it's a different. Poetry is interesting, man. I think as long as you're resonating emotionally, it vulnerability doesn't necessarily fall into it. I don't know.
Also,
I don't know if that makes sense.
I would feel differently. You talked about specifically creating it.
Yeah.
Performing it or reading it out loud is a different story.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would feel very vulnerable reading it. I don't mind having people, having people read it. But if if somebody asked me to like get up there and read it and perform it, like at some sort of presentation or something, that would be a whole different story.
That would be really tough.
Yeah.
I struggle with that a little bit with this book and it's particularly like the idea of like there's been a few interviews where I'm like I hadn't really thought that far ahead. Like
right.
Where I was like, okay, I'm going to be really vulnerable. I'm going to breach these topics like nobody talks about. And the funny thing is like I was uncomfortable writing it, but I kind of pushed through it. But I hadn't really thought about like the fact that like every interview I do would have to, not that I've done a ton, but like the few that I've done, it's like within the first 5 minutes, I have to be like, oh, well, let's talk about suicide. And It's like, that's a really terrible conversation starter. Like,
well, and not suicide in the abstract.
Yeah.
It's not like, let's talk about some statistics.
Yeah.
Like, let's talk about a point in time in your life where that was the lowest point in time in your life emotionally and mentally.
Yeah, which is that's a tough sell. Like when it's like I'm talking to people I've never met, and it's like the first time I've had that conversation. It's like let's talk about something you don't even talk to friends about. Like, and so it's like that was a part that I hadn't. So I definitely can see what you're saying about like the public element of it brings a whole level of vulnerability that's just like. Although it was kind of freeing to have those conversations because it's like I also really detest. I've talked about this, but I detest small talk.
Yeah.
And it cuts through the small talk, which is great. So it's like I don't know if that makes sense, but
oh yeah.
I can agree with Joshua. Sorry, I was thinking of my editor there for a moment. In like cutting to the chase is better instead of like making up discussion. Like getting head on into it. It's not a good like icebreaker, or at least the first impression basis. Mm-hmm. But after like a certain time, it's like the trivial, mundane things doesn't really excite you when you live them, and at the same time, when you try to discuss them on a more like meditative level, because I treat more like these conversations as more of a meditation session with other people, as I do generally with media. So when I see not so good, like good enough effort into putting or challenging things like your own perceptions and biases and etc., it becomes very confined or even comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, it's I don't know. Let's see. Made a lot of private autobiographical diary comics, Adam was saying. Won't be publishing any of it. They didn't help me process the traumatic events. It just made me dwell on them longer. Very painful stuff there and a lot of very graphic stuff. And then he was saying, I also got some very hurtful feedback about it. People didn't think it was being literally me, but a character they felt they didn't have to be sensitive about what they said about it. Yeah, that's another thing. when you're writing out a bio, like you really, it's a double-edged sword where it's like whatever you put out there, you got to be prepped for people to treat it like a character, you know?
Yeah.
Or like a highly idealized form. I bet that Franco would chime in on that. He's faced some of that feedback. Why don't you tell him?
Yeah, I was actually going to talk about that. I just did a video. You're talking about the vulnerability. I think it was a few days ago, looking back at the 30 Days of Making Mini Comics Challenge, and I talked about that auto bio comic. And then in that video, like a lot of stuff was coming back, so I had to cut and edit. But I mean, you can tell like stuff was getting emotional just because of being able to talk about it. And recently, I've and Jake knows about this. I've talked about, and I openly talk about suicide because it's something that I don't think should be shied away from. And I'm also in a support group, so it is something that we talk about and encourage people to talk about. Yeah. And I've had people tell me that they think I'm just looking for pity, that they don't believe me, that I'm just saying it just to end the conversation. And to those people, I say you can go take a hike, because I'm not gonna shy away from that, because that's actually one way that I get it out of my system by talking about it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, it is very emotional, and I've been attacked many times. Like people telling me that it's just something that I'm doing either for attention or it doesn't need to be talked about. And I say, no, it does need to be talked about. People are killing themselves every day because they don't talk about it.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's like it's definitely something that has like a spectrum to it, right? Where it's like, you know, for like what Adam just shared, I think that's really interesting, because I definitely would say my intent in writing like about what I wrote about in 2 stories wasn't super like catharsis or anything. Mm-hmm. I've definitely written like the first comic I ever wrote was like, and not like first comic I really wrote, but like the first serious one I tried to do was like me doing a very much cathartic just story where I really just kind of wanted to complain about my first love kind of broken heart kind of scenario, and I was just pissed. And so it's like a lot of that was fueled by rage and just the desire to have like a cathartic moment with it. And then I had some moments later on where I brushed up the story to make it a more interesting story, but still at its core it was like this catharsis thing. With this, it's like more of like just having gone through that, finding that for me, what like things that brought me comfort, you know, when I was going through that kind of ideation and thought, was hearing other people who had gone through the experience or were going through the experience, like speaking openly about it and not suddenly just being like, oh, let's see a different conversation, which, to be honest, we all do. Like, you know, that happened with Corey like 10 minutes ago, where we all kind of went dead silent for a second. It's human nature, like even for those of us who've had struggles or had loss, to like instantly kind of dodge heavy topics, you know. And I definitely would say like it's also important to not only have that as a topic of conversation, but I definitely think it's something that like needs to be talked about openly. I think Corey, like what you shared about your dad, like that's actually like really forward. The way he responded to that, I think that's a really awesome, just intelligent move on dealing with that, because you know, I think often people will treat it like a pariah kind of situation rather than just sort of confront the reality of what you know people are going through. And so like I definitely think that's I don't know whether I'm making head or tail of this as a topic, but it's like I definitely think it's important for people to feel comfortable about talking about things publicly, And I also would say it's different for each person. So like, I wouldn't recommend everyone. Like, I do try to push people to write autobio because I love it. Like, I love reading autobio.
Yeah.
And so that's something that naturally, like, I'm always wanting to see people like tell an autobio story. But I don't think that's for everyone. I think there are people who like really like privacy around certain issues. There's people who also like, once again, like, you do want to consider the ramifications of it. Like, it's like by me having like that book out, like it's available to anyone. So like, I literally have an open wound that people could like, really poke at. Right. And so
stream died.
Sorry. What was that?
The stream just dropped in and out.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Was that me just cutting out or just the stream?
No, everyone was cutting out on my end. I think it was my end or something.
Okay.
Yeah, because I could hear you, Josh, but I know that was happening earlier to me where you kind of cut out. So might be our connections.
Yeah, that's possible. Yeah. So anyhow, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna like comment short that it's one thing to be authentic, but then there is people that can't deal with authenticity.
Yeah, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think
yeah, go ahead.
Well, just adding to that, it's like I think that's something to be aware of before sort of like being super vulnerable or authentic. Like there's risk to everything. There's a reason vulnerability is what it is, because there's risk to it. So like, I do think it's, for some people it's good. I think for some people it's not. The other thing is like Adam, that's a tough one. Cause it's like, if you're doing it like in a cartoony style and maybe people are just not translating what you're writing as well. And so maybe that could be an approach thing, as like, it's just a tough thing. Like, it's just a tough thing to write out a bio. You make yourself vulnerable. A lot of people, who write fiction also like are writing very sincere, like honest things, and it's going to get interpreted different ways by different people. So it's like, I guess my point is like, before we, as artists, like before we kind of go and like open ourselves up on stage or whatever, like, just be ready for whatever happens from that. Cause like, even my book, like I can do my best as an author to like try to guide the reader to have like the takeaways that I want them to. But at the end of the day, like, it's totally possible that I could pour my heart into something that people are just like, meh, or they might be like, oh, that was a funny bit. And I'm like, it wasn't funny to me, like, so it's, I don't know. It's a tough line. I don't know, Corey, like, cause you deal, like, Corey teaches a ton of classes with students who are like at a very like weird time of life. And so I'm imagining a lot of those people probably want to express themselves, and I don't know, like, what's been your advice to like students, like when it comes to like sort of that fine line of like your artistic expression versus like how the audience will receive it, like considering the audience, like considering what you're putting out there, that kind of thing?
I mean, I teach communication courses.
Yeah.
And so most of the visual communication that I'm teaching is business purpose driven. So it's less, we kind of teach away from like expressing yourself and teach towards like expressing, the objective of the campaign or the specific audience or message. So I don't get into that a lot in teaching, but I kind of feel, I think there's a line, one is, I think don't cast your pearls before swine is really good advice.
Yes.
And I would just consider the world full of swine, especially the internet. But then in addition to that, I also think that sunshine is a good disinfectant, and so if if you get stuff out there, it can sometimes be helpful. But it's an interesting thing. I'm an open book, and I'll talk about pretty much anything. But I tend to avoid talking about stuff that's going to be polarizing or stuff that's going to make people feel uncomfortable in a public forum. So like on a live stream or a YouTube video or something like that.
Yeah.
But like in person, I'll tend to, I'll go down any path that the conversation, goes down. Cause like on those one-on-one situations, but that's also a situation where I feel like I have a better idea of who my audience is. So there's that, right? And then I think the third thing to consider is like, there is a level of, I don't know what you would call it. Maturity feels like the wrong word. It's not age or experience. It's not, and I don't like the idea of a thick skin because you start building defenses, and it's counterintuitive to the idea of vulnerability. But there's a level of comfort that you can build up to being vulnerable. And I think until you do that, I wouldn't dig down and find the deepest, darkest, nastiest demon that you've got and expose it publicly.
100%. Yeah. That's really well put.
But you could build up to that.
Mm-hmm.
But also
maturation.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's certain things that are good in different settings. For example, I think there's some stuff that makes a lot of sense with your therapist and your priest, and then there's other stuff that makes sense on a public forum. And I think people need to consider, how things might affect their employment and their children and their spouse. And, there are things that you could say publicly that might negatively impact people that are part of that story. And there's a lot of nuance to a lot of that situation. I remember I was serving a mission for my church, and to me, the car accident was a very spiritual experience. I was, gained a testimony of the afterlife and a lot of elements that were kind of academic prior to that I become very spiritual to me. I know that my brothers didn't cease to exist. They're still alive. They just don't have their bodies, and so when I was talking about this with somebody on my mission, it was the first time that I had come across somebody that blamed my mom for that. And they said, "Oh, your mom must feel awful for killing her children." And I was like, I realized then that I needed to be a little bit more careful with who I trust with those pearls.
Yeah.
Because that threw me pretty significantly. But I was like 20 at the time. So it had been 13 years since that. And that was the first time. I mean, there was the news, accused my mom of being drunk and said that the kids didn't have seatbelts on. And I mean, so like the media was not kind, but like I had never experienced that like on a one-on-one situation until that day. And so that's when I started to realize like, okay, like I was actually surrounded by very emotionally intelligent people that had the ability to like understand the nuance of the situation and communicate openly and honestly, but with empathy. And so just some random person that I just met, probably not the best like intro into that unless it feels right.
Yeah, dude, that is so important. And I think that ties into the autobio thing a lot in the sense of like what was mentioned in the chats too, was like this idea of like kind of showing it to people. And I forget what it said. This was really interesting to me. Oh, it said that it's a character they didn't feel like they had to be sensitive about what they said about it. And I really want to be clear that while I'm vulnerable in two stories, I am not going to be sitting next to everyone who reads it.
Right.
And so it's like, I have to be aware of that when I'm writing it and do the best job I can as a writer to make people feel what I want them to feel. But also you're going to notice like, and this is a weird thing. It's like in the book, and I don't know how effectively I did this, but I also treat myself with a bit of humor. And so there's a lot of underlying humor throughout to try to kind of soften it so that to soften people up so that they actually feel the impact of the story.
Yeah, I was going to like,
oh, go ahead.
There.
No, go for it.
I've been thinking about it for the last like 5 to 10 minutes about this whole thing that it could be boiled down to. When it comes to contacting with people, I think it's important to make them first laugh, and then you can try to see if you can make them cry.
Yeah,
and then sort of like shift between and sift through like different arrangements of feels, but like get these two elements right when you're like within like a conversation or within a group of people, because then you can move the room in a sense. And, that sort of like needs to be like put into like work so that people can easily more empathize with others, or like empathize with the character in a simulated situation. So like if there is more like humorous moments with them, you could start to play with their sympathy and empathy down the line in a way.
Yeah, dude. I mean, weirdly enough, like Curb Your Enthusiasm does this expertly, and if you tweaked those scripts for like Curb Your Enthusiasm episodes just a slight bit, it would be a complete tragedy. Like the show, it does a really good job at like kind of emotionally getting people to a point of like empathy, but also just like complete absurdist humor. And there's like this fine line between the two. I guess what I'm getting at, and this is kind of reiterating what Corey was saying, it's like I'm not trying to say you have to have a thick skin, but I'm also kind of trying to say you do have to have a thick skin. Like if you're going to write about it and publicly talk about it, it doesn't mean you can't be emotionally connected to it. But like in my scenario where it's like it's a published book, it's like I have to be aware there's going to be some guy or some girl out there who picks it up and just thinks it's ridiculous. I mean, like blankets, I've heard people make jokes about blankets where they're just like, this is just somebody's like narcissistic, like masturbation story, you know? And it's like anyone who's read Blankets, like that's not the heart of that story. But I mean, like to an extent, like, I don't know, that's the tough part about autobio is like you kind of are giving an open wound to a lot of people. So when you do open that wound, it's kind of like almost think of it as like a tattoo. Is that a tattoo you don't mind people seeing? If it is, like, then have it. But like, it's an interesting. That's a really interesting. I don't know. To me, this is an interesting thing because I'm usually pushing for vulnerability, and in my own work, I usually am pretty open. But it is an interesting thing of like, I don't know if it's for everyone. You know what I mean? Also, I'll say if you write about other people, get their permission, especially if they're close to you. And if you don't get their permission, expect that might cause like a rift in that friendship or relationship, you know? Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Jake. I was talking over you a lot. You make a
good point when it comes to blankets, and it's sort of like a more like skewed in onto this book. But like I think that the story tries to tell in a way not that the main protagonist doesn't like retreat into like a fantasy.
Yeah.
Because the end is marked by the thing that sort of was like an idea that he was painted with somebody. That love was a growing tree in an everlasting like thought, but he notices that life doesn't go that way in a sense, so he had to paint it over. At the very end, you get to see that part. And I think that was sort of like the message that Craig wanted to converse with the reader, because that's sort of like a thing that he didn't do in reality.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, and I think it's brilliant. I also know that I know people who've not gotten that from that book, and now is that they're bad for not getting it? I don't know. Like art speaks to different people, so
it depends how deep can you like symbolically present things and like visualize it and think around it. Because when you're thinking of a comic, it could stem like the whole message could be in like 3 panels on a strip. Or it could be a complete book, and you have to dissect it and study every element and see the arrangement of it in sequences. Mm-hmm. That's the important part I think about when it comes to tackling a work of comics, and why I don't generally like to criticize it when it's still an ongoing publication, because I don't get the full picture until it's completed. And so I see that like as a waste of time in like committing to criticizing continuing or ongoing series. Like manga is one good example of that. I generally despise criticism of manga because it hasn't lived up to the lived through the setups that it's been promising throughout the story. And so to get the full extent of it, I will have to consume the entirety of it. And there might be like differences with people in that they get really caught up in their own like thing. On the internet, you can definitely see that with fan theory and headcanon, shipping, whatever. But in the end, it's not really a matter of who's right, but or who can like predict the right outcome of it or see it in a complete picture upon like completion, or when it's just a graphic novel. What it does is to move the reader in a sense. So if you're not moved in one way, you can be moved by another way. Not negative or positive. It's like a reciprocatory process that ultimately makes up your mind at the end.
Yeah, and I think when you're engaging in the discourse of ideas, right? Like, you know, we're still in a marketplace of ideas, like doing art. And it's like when we're engaging in that, like we have to understand that like it's our job to communicate as best we can those ideas, but it's that communication is not going to resonate with everyone. And so like, you know, I think if we're going to, I definitely would say for anyone who's delving into autobio, I think that's one of the reasons I feel like the best autobios do get really super vulnerable and uncomfortable. But the cost of that is like you have to be kind of cool with being vulnerable and uncomfortable and also totally misinterpreted. Or like maybe your character is viewed as a clown as opposed to like the tragic figure that they are, you know? And that's kind of the nature of the whole beast. So it's like I said, I think all artists bear their soul in some way. It's just, you know, some people might mask it behind, you know, like Charles Schultz or whatever, where it's like, I don't know if Charles Schultz was like super public about how autobiographical a lot of Charlie Brown is and Peanuts, but it's like he threw parts of his soul into it. It's just with a thicker layer than like someone just being like, hey, this is me, you know? I don't know. Mm-hmm. Is this making any sense, or are we just tangenting all over the place?
No, we're not tangenting. It is relevant in some things. It's just like some people can see the pattern, others can't see the pattern.
What do you think?
I'm working on one of my autobio comics right now, so
nice. But I empathize with what Adam was talking about, and I think that's a good call. If it makes you uncomfortable that somebody wasn't like kind of resonating with your character, that might be a good sign. Like maybe that's not your genre. Like, and I don't mean that in a negative. Mm-hmm. It's just like, or maybe that's just the wrong thing to do autobio about, you know? I don't think it's for everyone, but I do always want to see everyone's autobios, partially because I just like, to me, like when Frank was talking about how he got through the whole shutdown and like of the electrical grid in Texas, I was just like, that's a really cool story. Like that to me, that's why I like autobios. Like I like hearing people's unique stories, and so that's pretty cool, you know. Corey's story too. It's like that's such a profoundly like impactful, important thing. It's like I feel like I'm a better person having known that story, and so it's like that's why I usually tend to push people to do or try to encourage people to do autobio, because I'm like I want everyone to know that story. But I agree, like with also what Corey was saying with like some people it's not meant to be. And I hope when I tapped that mic by accident, one of my wild hand gestures, I didn't just make a loud thump noise. Okay, cool. Still getting used to this new mic.
Like one of my favorite mangakas, or like my new favorite like mangaka over the modern times at least, she works within autobio. She's been doing that since 2015, and her like biographical adventure has been about her struggles with coming out as a lesbian, and in Japan, of course, and her dealing with depressions and all that stuff, and alcoholism as a recent, because the latest installment, she was hospitalized for alcoholism, or having a high count of cells, I think, in the liver.
Okay.
I remember. Like above average, like exorbitantly amounts, like 10 times or something. And that count shouldn't be like aspired to reach when you're an alcoholic. So she was put into hospital, and she reflected upon it that it was not maybe good for her own sake to do autobio. She's been doing 3 installments, and she's gotten a lot of criticism and flack for even wanting to tell that in an unconventional manner, because you can definitely tell that she's not like the best mangaka. She has a definitive like look to it that makes it exclusively her, and I think that sort of like sells it in a way. But she deals with it through like a lot of comedy and exaggeration of that stylization that she puts in with visuals and stuff into the writing. But it's very hurtful to see that she was so disencouraged by the way that she's been leading up her leading to her work, because there's like an international audience now that is following her adventures, and to just being born down, weighted down on negativity, especially from like Japan, her home country. It's sort of like, man, if we could also like tap into that conversation and just encourage her, but no, I think that it wouldn't help at all, because there would be more criticism and sort of like feed onto it.
Yeah, that's the toughest part about it, right? Because it's like a self-fulfilling cycle where, and once again, I think that's why, like, honestly, I think maybe this can get a little broader, but it's like, I feel like when you're making art, you have to kind of try to think about your niche, even if it's a broad audience or whatever. It's like you're writing for certain people. If you're doing this for a client too, it's really important to remember, because it's like if you're doing art for a client and you're trying to speak to everyone, you're speaking to no one. So you want to think about like the niche in the market that you're speaking to. And similarly, like as an artist, when you're doing personal creative work that you're personally invested in, you have to kind of keep in mind you're writing for a specific audience. And so like in the case of this artist that you were just talking about, Jake, it's like the people she needs to be writing for are those people who are on her side and kind of are interested and are following her work and are kind of encouraging her. The trolls are going to come. Like they're going to exist. And the more known that book gets, like the more that will just, there's going to be people who just do not get it. And I think as an artist, it's really hard because we don't always know our audience. But it's like, I feel like you have to be writing for a specific kind of person. For me, I also I think it helps to filter it out. Like that's part of why with my book, like I started it really heavy, because it was like kind of equivalent to like walking into a party and be like, okay, we're going to talk politics. And it's like instantly like not that that's how the book starts, but it's like as incendiary as that, where it's like, okay, if people aren't on board with this, they know straight up, like, this is what we're going to discuss. There's no like sneak attack. And I feel like that helps, but I don't know. It's a hard thing to approach, and I'm still figuring it out. Yeah, I don't know.
Also, Adam, I don't want to like chase you up to like be encouraged by doing this, but think of it that the people that have read it might be your closest people, and they are a whole different like ballpark, considering that there might not have like that side of you figured out or understood, and they see you in their own way, and they might not be the targeted demographic to the ones that you could potentially sell the story to, because there are people out there that have been struggling with these things, and having that out there, well, it's one thing to have to deal with the repercussions of the people closest to you being ragging on you for publishing that stuff because it's highly personal, but at the same time, it is not comfort food. What am I saying? It is affirming to people.
I like that.
But only as much as you want it to be, and feel encouraged by doing so.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Frank, did we say anything crazy? I don't know.
No, I was just waiting. When I made that the video that I was talking about, I wasn't sure how that was going to be received, but like a lot of people like that I shared something personal, and apparently there's like people that were going through something too. So that's why I share my story, and I don't always know how it's going to be received, because the one that I'm going to be working on, continue working on. I've told people I don't know like how it's going to be received after it's finished, because it's not going to end on a happy story. It's just going to be, because it's very it's a small part of my life, and it goes on. So it's not going to end like, oh, and everything became happy, but it's going to lead into another comic that I'm going to be doing that I think will help people a little bit more. But this first one is just kind of like setting things in place, because after that I'm going to talk about how I dealt with epilepsy, and it's something that I've talked about before, and not people that don't understand what like a lot of what epilepsy is, and I the way I say it is, I don't have epilepsy anymore, but I still have some of the effects, and I have people telling me, no, once you have it, you always have it. In my mind, I'm thinking, well, you're not me. You didn't go through what I went through, and you're not doing what I'm doing to get over it. But I can't tell people my way is your way. It's up to them. So I know some people that take different medication, and it helps them. It did help me, but I found other ways, but that's something I might talk about later. It's a sensitive topic, because it's not the same for everyone who has epilepsy.
Yeah,
there's some kind of mutation. I've talked about before on a live stream where I was reading up on the different types, and there's like this is the one you have, and then I'm reading like, well, no, this one sounds more like this one, but a combination of this one and a little bit of this one. I'm like, so I don't know. Like it's not something precise. So I can only share my experience and how it was for me. And this is something I've talked about before with a few other people, but I've never really talked about openly too much. It's just like, I'll just say a little bit, and a lot of people have like misconceptions, and so I'm trying to like let people know, like, yeah, like some of those aren't true, but like it's okay to ask questions if you want to ask questions. If the person is willing to ask questions, to answer questions, like ask them.
Yeah, I want to build on that point. One thing that I've noted in that people take largely offense by is the portrayal of depression. Because everyone is perceiving mental illness as being in one way or in some form, and it's just like the standard way of conveying it.
Yeah.
And then there is the personalized experiences. In Frank's case, it's a very personal level of epilepsy. But in the vein of depression, a lot of people that try to tap into that when it comes to either biographical works or simply as a subject matter, they're like getting a criticism or comment that they're perceiving it wrong. It could be either lack of research, or it could be just a very personal, idealized form of it. And I'm speaking of idealized form in that it's based on personal experience, and so like balancing that out with an amount of research to it. I think that people could be more charitable in that way of not putting their illness in front of the work, and so as it's trying to discuss some similarities or some differences. But that's sort of like not advisable into talking against the customer base that reads the material, or like watches the material. But there needs to be like a disclosure somewhat now that these things, they do not cross easy with some people. But I don't think with some. I think with everyone in a way. And so you can only do so much when you're doing your work. So you shouldn't be like listening to just one person or just like a subset of persons, but you shouldn't also go and curtail everything to like everyone, because then it will be lost. So you got to meet there's got to be like that sweet spot in the middle that you can do it through. And the best way is to just have a balanced research on it and your experience being pulled into it as well. Yeah. And it sort of like forms around like not only expressions wise, but also in that artistic ability to visualize it and connect the dots sort of in in not a mature way, but from a grounded way.
I think also I think when you're talking about especially like mental illness, it's such a broad brush. It's not like it affects everybody in the same way.
Yeah.
And so one person's depression is another, like, actually most people I know who suffer from like severe depression, like are very like happy people. Like in like when you meet them, they seem really excited and happy, and they have a lot of energy. So it's not like, a lot of them don't match like kind of the cliche depressed person you would like kind of imagine if you just like were to close your eyes and be like, imagine someone depressed, and you'd think of like, a gothic kid with like tears streaming out down their eyes and stuff. Like, it's not all that.
It's like putting like a peripheral kind of association, while in reality it's more conflicted in that it's like a reverse psychological thing. The things that you do and act and say is totally different to how you like perceive yourself, or are being perceived of as yourself.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess my point is like, I think like the neat thing about like again, like the thing I like about like Autobio is it does bring a lot of more diverse stories, and so you can learn a lot from it. And but yeah, I definitely would say if you're writing a personal story, it's also important not to write it prescriptively, as if you're like finding the solution to all of life's ills, because like
I agree.
That's equivalent to like the parent that said that ill-advised thing to Corey, where it's like making like assertions about like the like this like stepping into areas that the person could not possibly even know. or should pretend to know. I think that's a fine line too, but it's definitely very interesting. All right, guys, I have to. I'm not trying to wrap this too bad, but it's like 1 o'clock, and I was gonna make this like an hour stream, and we've gone 3.
Yes, almost 3/4.
I know. So this is about like a half of a typical night gang now as they go, but I think I am gonna call it at this halfway point. Corey, was this a stream you want to continue, or do you think this is a good place to call it?
I'm doing some. Well, I don't mind continuing it, but I'm doing some fairly complicated things mentally, so I can't really talk because I'm trying to figure out the in between movement of each of these joints. So I was probably going to bow out here in a couple minutes anyway.
Yeah. So I was only saying because I was going to say like you could bring this to your channel if you want, but it sounds like we're going to be probably wrapping the stream. So I wanted to say thanks to everybody in the chats. Thank you, Adam. That was a really cool topic and a lot of interesting conversation there. So thank you. Thanks to Ronnie who stops by like almost every night before heading to work and stuff. And yeah, just thanks to everybody who showed up in the chats. And then obviously thank you guys for coming on the stream and hopping on. So let's do a go around and let everybody know where to find your work. Why don't we start? Let's start with you, Jake. Where can everybody find your work?
People can follow me on Twitter at JTVister. It's with a V, not a W. J Twister. You can also type it up in the search bar if you feel so kind to. And right now, I am partaking in a Indiegogo campaign on an adult demographic anthology of twisted fairy tales. So if you want to read on some good old classics, put on a new spin and a top hat, and probably perhaps a little bit bare naked down below, come over to Indiegogo and check it out.
I love it. Cool. And then so that's J Tvister with TVISTER on Twitter. All right, Frank, where can everybody find your work?
Well, you can find me on Salazar Art Nation and also the Turaco Creative Cast. And you can find my work on Instagram, also Salazar Art Nation. And I'm on Twitter. I don't post that often, but once in a while I will I pop in. And I think that's Nation Salazar. And you can also check out my Ko-fi account if you want to support me and my work, and I will send you out some PDF comics, and I'll send you the latest one that I just did. This is also a little bit of slice of life, but this is actually a funny one, but it does take place in a certain type of clinic that I don't usually talk about. So if you want to kind of check that out, go to my Ko-fi account.
Awesome. Cool. All right. So Corey, again, before I even go to Corey, I want to reiterate to people, this is the after party for the Indie Review Show. So if you are watching this far, make sure you go to irsagency.com and check out our last review of Darth Vader and Son, which was made by a really brilliant indie cartoonist, Jeffrey Brown. He does a lot of super confessional, super awkward autobio comics, definitely for adults, and also managed to make these brilliant little coffee table books that are hilarious and amazing. So, all right. Corey, other than on the last Indie Review Show episode, where can people find you?
You can find me at CoreyKerr.com. And,
I love it.
Yeah. Go check me out on Instagram and Twitter and YouTube.
Yeah, I recommend following Corey on all of them, but I also will say like his Instagram is amazing and shows a lot of little brief clips and snippets behind the scenes of his animations, and a lot of them just really well formatted for a quick bite-sized like piece of awesome content. So definitely make sure you're following him on Instagram as well as everywhere else. But like, yeah, I second that. And then for me, I would say if you're in the LA County area, keep an eye out tomorrow feel free to stop by Bases Cards and Comics tomorrow in Lancaster, California. I'll be doing a signing of 2 stories. And then the following day, on Thursday, I will also be doing a second signing at Voodoo Vinyl in Lancaster, California. There's 2 locations, one in Newhall, one in Lancaster. I'm doing it at the Lancaster location. You can check out more information on that on my website. So, and then also just buy 2 stories, which I'll mention every single stream till the second book's out. All right. Thanks again for the lively chat. Corey, that's looking pretty darned amazing. I almost want to see what else, but maybe some other stream we'll play more. But yeah, it was cool to see that animation come to life. All right, and with that being said, we're gonna basically call it. So thanks you guys. Thanks for hopping on the stream, and I'll see you guys later. Later. Bye, guys.
See ya.